Uh, Welcome everybody. Today we are joined by Dafydd from Mango Markets. He's joined WhalePool to talk a bit about his new project he's involved with that is doing margin trading on Solana, and there's lots of interesting plans for Mango. So we're here to talk about basically everything they got going on, how they got to Solana, and all that stuff. Thanks, David, for joining us and spending the time to talk about Mango.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time to interview me. I mean, I saw your tweet threads, and I was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. So that's how I ended up here.
Cool. Yeah, that's the cool thing about crypto is that like you just run into people randomly in whether it's on Discord or Twitter, and then you could just sort of get the feeling of whether, yeah, I want to talk to this person or learn more about it. So,
Yeah.
actually, that reminds me. Can you tell us about the how, like you, because I heard this on another podcast, but I want other people to hear the story again. Tell us about how you met your I guess you called co-founder or whatever, but Max, how you ended up running into him and what effort you were doing to end up meeting him.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like the story of COVID and crypto. So I started looking into Serum and Solana back in August slash September of last year, and I had this design for margin trading, and I kind of wanted to show it to Sam Bankman-Fried and see if I can get some support that way or some insight. So I made this design. I was kind of a novice coder, and I made this margin trading thing, and I put this on YouTube. And by the way, hold on. There's there's like we're on TeamSpeak, and I just getting all these like annoying.
Oh shit! Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to go to self and then sound pack and then sounds deactivated. Sorry, that's one thing we forgot to hit.
No, I saw that. I was just like, nah, I'm not annoyed by sounds.
Yeah, you are. You're gonna be sorry. That's sorry.
That was totally my fault. Okay. Okay. Now I can think more clearly. All right. Yeah. So I put this on YouTube, and it was just like this command line thing. It was really bad, and it's still probably up on my YouTube. But Max found it, and Max thought that was really, you know, well, he was really impressed by the potential there, and he contacted me, found me on Discord, and yeah, and we haven't met in person because Max lives in Germany, and I live in the United States, and we were trying to find some complicated maneuver to meet up. Like if he goes to Mexico, then then like Panama or whatever, like some complicated onion routing scheme where then we could meet up. But yeah, eventually we just decided, nah, let's just wait until COVID's over. But yeah, that's our origin story.
So you sent basically like the crypto version of a love letter to SPF, and someone else answered it, and you ended up starting the project with Max instead, basically.
Yeah, basically. I mean, you can't ever underestimate the power of just putting stuff out there on the internet.
Yeah.
There's a weird, there. I mean, you're often just thinking, oh yeah, this is really bad. This sucks. I'm a novice coder. No one's gonna like this. But there's always like one crazy guy out there uh, who thinks, who kind of sees the potential in it. And so, luckily Max found it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think within crypto, it's a very like merit-based community. Like, if people have nothing to really add, whether it's code or product ideas, or even if it's just managing the community or whatever, like then yeah, they're you have no use for them if they're not legitimately interested and understand what's going on. Then they're not very interesting. So the fact that people take the time to do that, like if you're putting out content and you're sending those signals out there, that's already putting you ahead of the pack when it comes to like whether you're interviewing for a job or whatever. So that's one of the coolest things about this community. It's like put up or shut up.
Yeah, I mean that's how like our team has grown. I mean there was this, I mean so the other person who's part of the core engineering team is Tyler, who we met. You know, he was just looking for a team to join during the hackathon. He wanted to get involved in Solana, and we met over Zoom. But turns out he just like lives in the same city that I live in, and like a really
Nice.
weird coincidence, you know. But that didn't matter, right? We were gonna start working together whether he lived here or not. So yeah, the world is a small place, and also has huge benefits in crypto. Just reaching out to people and trying to demonstrate value. People always pick up on that because there's so few others who can demonstrate value.
Yeah, I think also there's so many fakes in crypto. Like there's so many people that see the prices booming like right now. They want to FOMO in. They don't know what's going on. And I think it's very, very small percentage of the people that know what's going on. I know that's a broad statement, but like there's a lot of wannabes, and I think it's easy to filter out. Like all it takes is a bit of a discussion with someone to figure out if they're the real deal or not. So
yeah, proof of work. You know, especially if you built something, even if it's bad, you know, you've demonstrated proof of work, and that filters out all the fake people.
Yeah, proof of work, proof of knowledge, proof of interest. You know, that stuff really matters. So why don't we rewind a little bit? So actually, how many people are on the Mango team now? Then you know you guys have been growing more, but what are you looking at now?
So you know, maybe roughly 5 or 6 people that you might call the Mango team. And I put that in quotes because now we started having these dev meetups. We didn't have one today, but we're aiming for doing it every Saturday. And now there's just like I don't know, 20 people waiting at the gates. There's lots more people who are now interested. So yeah, maybe 6 people, you know, the Mango team roughly, but we're trying to expand to that and even bring in and even have like independent teams that execute all on their own. So I don't really know how large that size is now. It's probably much bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I was hanging out on the Discord, sharing a couple of ideas as I was digging deeper into it, and it seems like way more than 5 or 6 people. Like, there's a lot of guys that seem like they understand what's going on. That are throwing around ideas, testing stuff. I mean, there's definitely a lot of interest in the project in general. But when you say dev meetup, is that just sort of like an open, like people that are interested in the project meetup, or specifically code pushers that are working on the repo or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually just open to the public. But it will just be sort of, it'll be more technical, and it's also where we kind of get to know each other and know, you know, all the new work that needs to be done and who wants to do it, that kind of thing. So if you're not a dev, you might still find it interesting, but you might not find it you might not be able to contribute much there.
Yeah,
But
it might
it'll still
be
be
difficult to
interesting.
follow. It's one of those things like, smart people are talking about stuff. I can see stuff is going on, but I can't really follow it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the Mango team growing. There's like 5 or 6 core guys. Lots of people hanging out in the Discord, sharing ideas, playing with it. You already have a product that's. I've been playing with it in alpha for a while. I got. I got this invite from. Oh fuck! What's his name? I really forgot.
Nick?
No, it wasn't. It was, he's gonna kill me if he hears this. From FTX, from Alameda.
Oh, Tristan.
Tristan. I wanted to say a different name with T, and I knew it was wrong. But yeah, Tristan. Sorry, Tristan. Yeah, he hooked me up with an invite weeks ago, or maybe longer. So yeah, basically, it's a borrowing and lending layer on top of Serum. So if you go to, anyone listening to this can go to trade.mango.markets, and you just hook up, you connect just like it's Serum, you connect your wallet to it. It only takes Bitcoin, ETH, and USDT right now, but basically it connects the Bitcoin USDT, ETH USDT markets on Serum, and then you basically are borrowing borrowing and lending if you have deposits, and depending on what you are executing, it generates these borrows. It's very similar to people that have experienced uh, margin trading on FTX. It's very the way that the user experience is very similar. But actually, I want to I wanted to rewind a bit more though, because I want people to understand like where you guys are coming from philosophically and stuff. So, like, tell me about like how you got into Bitcoin. Or I assume when you got into crypto, it started with Bitcoin. But how you got interested in crypto, and what is it about Solana? Solana, very like, it's only really come on the scene. It only did the launch a year ago, right? That's when the mainnet beta got launched. So what is it? So what got you into crypto? What got you then interested in Solana? Like, why aren't you building something on Ethereum, etc.? So maybe you could tell people about the journey of how you got into crypto and how you got here.
Yeah. Well, before I get into that, I just wanted to clarify. I mean, you said you got a alpha invite, but I just wanted to clarify that was like more than a month ago. It's totally open for everyone. You know, fully decentralized. That alpha invite small piece there was just like right when we launched. So yeah, just wanted to clarify so no one thinks like they have to get an invite or something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's an important clarification, and we'll get more into the product stuff. I just forgot that I wanted to get some crypto background in first.
Yeah. So then, all right. So why did I get into crypto? So you know, like 5 years ago, I was big into trading equities. Automated trading strategies, that kind of thing. And I did well in these competitions. But turns out if you don't have 25K in your account, you can't do more than 3 trades per week in the United States. And so I didn't know anything about crypto, Bitcoin, or anything. It was really, you know, one of the few places where you could, if you wanted to implement some automated trading strategy, it was the only place where you could do that. And it was, you know, wide open. That kind of like total freedom frontier kind of thing. You literally just had to have an email address and some Bitcoin. That's it. And so this was hugely appealing to me because, you know, I didn't have 25K. And I was looking into it, and I was a big fan of prediction markets, and I saw the potential there of like prediction markets that don't have unreasonably low caps and that actually convey meaningful information. And all of these things could only really be done on crypto. Still, I was interested in trading, not in crypto. So just like everybody else who gets in, I think you start off with a tiny bit of Bitcoin, and you're like, okay, maybe I'll hedge this risk. You know, I don't know about this Bitcoin thing. I have no idea. But that also was illegal in the United States to hedge your risk. So you just had to hold Bitcoin and hope it turned out well. So you know, that was a start, and I've been a trader the whole time, slowly becoming more and more converted into a Bitcoiner, almost a Bitcoin maxi at some points, because I just didn't see DeFi holding up so well. Every time I would go, and this is like 2019. I mean, clearly in like crypto at this point, right? I'm a crypto guy. I would try to go to some DeFi apps and like DYDX or Augur, and I just couldn't, you know, bring myself to pull the trigger. Like I could afford to spend $30 on gas, or wait, you know, 10 minutes, or you know, wait 20 seconds per transaction. I could have done those things, but I was just like, this is never going to work in the long run. Like this will be fun for a day. And so I was really not a big fan of DeFi and like even as of August of last year, I did not participate in DeFi Summer. Just wasn't interested. But yeah, that kind of changed as soon as I saw Serum Dex, and I saw SBF talking about it on Twitter. And SBF, somebody I think has a reasonable head on his shoulders, usually knows what he's talking about. And then I saw Serum Dex, and I was just hooked. Like the user interface could use some work there, but like transactions really did feel like they were on a centralized exchange. And once I started reading the code, I was even more convinced, because there was no part of it that was centralized. In the periphery, there may be some things, maybe the wallets, maybe some pieces here and there are centralized, but like if you were doing these transactions on Serum Dex, totally decentralized. So that's, from then on, and I was a market maker, so I had these bots running, doing hundreds of millions of dollars in volume, and I was just like, this is not the future. The future is on chain. I am finally convinced. So since then, just been building on Solana this whole time.
So when you mentioned not being centralized, but so one of the things, I've also had sort of Bitcoin. I guess not. I don't like the Bitcoin maximalist term. More like Bitcoin supremacist. Where like I was just like, Bitcoin is that's the king. All this other stuff is fun to play with, whatever. But in the end, the only decentralized, truly sovereign money in crypto is really Bitcoin. And when I first saw Solana, I was like, oh, this is like EOS all over again. EOS was. They were claiming 500 millisecond block times and super fast, this and that. And so in my head, I always saw this direct trade-off between performance and decentralization. Like if you wanted to have better performance, you had to sacrifice on decentralization and or security. So how do you think that Solana like resolves this? I mean, if I go to the Solana validators list right now, if you have a third of the cumulative stake that's out there, you between validators, they can halt the network technically. Right now, that's only 12 validators. Do you think that this is something that is going to be resolved on Solana in the long run? How much of a problem do you think centralization is at the moment?
So I don't think it's that big of a problem on Solana. I think you have a large number of validators. It's just there's a few of them that are holding a lot of the stake. Or sorry, people want to, like, for example, they want to stake with the validator that gives the lowest fees, and has like some name recognition and whatnot. And so I think, you said the top 12 roughly comprises 33%. Yeah, that's a little bit worrying, I would say, but ultimately, and you already see this, like when when it becomes a little bit too concentrated, people diversify out because they don't want to halt the network, and they, I mean, obviously these guys are super well invested in the network. And I think it's just going to expand more, right? As you get more validators that are offering really low fees, and people basically have to go there. And I'm guilty of this too, where I'm just like, let me go to the biggest validator who has the lowest fees and put all my stake, all my soul there. If we just increase the messaging there, like, don't stake all your soul please don't stake your soul on the top 12 guys, stake below. I think then you get decentralization. So I don't think I don't think it's a fundamental problem. It's like a messaging kind of like get on Twitter and tell people kind of.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also why I think Solana Beach, for example, they have this thing where it's like, hey, this is the cutoff of where there's a third of the cumulative stake. Please don't stake with the above. But some of us here, like I haven't experienced this myself, but there are some here who have staked their soul with a very low fee, low cumulative stake validator, and then they come back a few days later and they've hiked the fees to 80 or 100%, and there's some shady shit going on out there. So I can totally understand why people are averse to like experimenting too low on that cumulative stake hierarchy, and they rather kind of have to choose more reputable validators. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, I've run into this myself where it was never 80%, but it was like 0%, and then it became 10%. So yeah, like I think this is a legitimately fair point against Solana. I think Vitalik himself raised this point in that it's somewhat expensive to run a validator. I think it's probably, I don't know the details. I'm not actually crypto dev in that sense, so I don't know the details between how expensive an Ethereum's validator versus a Solana validator. Ethereum 2.0 validator. But I think it is fairly expensive to run a validator, and I think the Solana team says it's just like a top end gaming PC. That may be true. I haven't really tried to do it. So yeah, I'm just like not very qualified to speak on the subject, I think. But yeah, it does seem to be expensive if you try to run it on a data center or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of one of the memes that the Ethereum guys like to say, is that it's a data center coin, or like EOS. It was all about the cartel that's running EOS, and I know because of proof of history, and like Solana isn't as much of a problem in terms of the cartel thing, which EOS ran into. So I don't think that's really as valid of an issue with Solana. But yeah, but I ran into the same thing because when I got into Solana last year, I was looking into like, how do I run a validator? I want to support the network, and then quickly realized that what Anatoly on Discord was calling a high-end gaming PC was actually a pretty fucking expensive proper setup, and I was just like, you know what? I don't
Maybe
really want
your
to.
gaming PCs are just really low end. Maybe you need to
Well,
upgrade your gaming PCs.
yeah, I mean, shit. Like
I
I
think
ended up just
Anatoly just plays everything on very ultra high.
yeah, yeah. He's running some kind of sick setup, but yeah, I ended up just not going the validator route, even though I wanted to do it to support the network. And as soon as staking went live, I started to delegate my soul to not my SOL, not my soul.
Yeah, delegate your soul to Anatoly.
Yeah. I started to delegate the SOL tokens to validators, and started playing that game with like, oh, are these guys gonna fuck me with some really high fee after, or whatever. But what about, so just on the topic of building on Solana, um, like, so you say you're not really like a blockchain or crypto, sort of like a crypto dev, like in the sense of like running the network, but obviously you're building on Solana, right? Like you're a blockchain dev in that regard. Uh, what so have you had experience building on Ethereum, and how would you compare that experience to what it's like building on Solana? Like, how easy is it for devs out there to get involved? Like, what would you suggest to them?
Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. I had never, like I said, I had not very high expectations on Ethereum DeFi, so I never even learned to code a smart contract in Ethereum. So 6 months ago, or now it's probably like 8 months. 8 months ago, I'd never touched any smart contract code in my life. I don't think I'd even seen smart contract code. So yeah, it's hard for me to compare. I know Solidity looks a little bit like Python or JavaScript, and Solana looks Solana just basically is Rust. Everything you do in Rust, you do it the same way in Solana. Yeah, like in terms of developing on Solana, I would say if I could do it, right? If I could jump in and start developing, and the developer resources were not as good 8 months ago as they are now. And there's not as many teams willing to help you out and get started. Like the Mango team will help you out get started, right? Like the Mango team didn't exist 8 months ago. And so I would say the experience has gotten a lot easier if you have any experience at all with like C or C++. I think you'll find it easy, very easy. Coding in Rust. You'll actually, at this point, I would never touch C++ again. I think Anatolius totally converted me. Like, I mean, do you want me to go into some of the benefits, the weaknesses?
Well, so let me. So we do have a lot of like devs in the community. Like, unsurprisingly, when crypto has blown up, a lot of like engineering types become traders, and they start to do a lot of more trading. So it's okay to get a bit more technical. Like one thing that I wanted to throw out there, which maybe you could play on, was that. So I've heard that Rust is useful because it's like it doesn't allow for these memory overflows. Like you have to um, like you have to set ownership when it comes to various functions and stuff like that, such that you can't just have random stuff that is pouring into the same buffer or whatever and creating overflows. But in Solana, it's getting like the code is getting compiled right into some kind of virtual machine, and then there's like this Solana bytes code. So there can't be memory overflows anyway. But is there still benefits for it to be Rust? I guess. Like, what other benefits are there really?
I'm not sure if that's true. In terms of memory overflow, like you can actually write Rust. Sorry, you can actually write Solana BPFs. They call it the Berkeley packet filter. And that's like this compiled object that runs in the kernel. You can actually write that in C. That there's an option for that. Almost nobody does, but you can write it in C. And I bet you can also just write it in such a way that you mess up memory. You do some illegal memory access or something, which won't crash the blockchain, obviously, but it'll crash your program and prevent the full execution of your program. So yeah, like I think what Rust accomplishes here, what's cool about it is it trains you. This takes like I would say like 2 weeks to a month. But once you go through this, it trains you to write code in such a way that you never really have to think about memory anymore. And I've written high frequency trading engines in C++, and the whole time you're thinking about memory because you're and it's a different case because it's also you're trying to do super low latency, high frequency stuff, so you want stuff cache optimized and whatnot. So maybe not a fair comparison, but still, you're always thinking about like, does this pointer point to anything real? Did somebody free this pointer already? Et cetera, those kind of things. In Rust, that like never comes up, especially in the kind of Rust that you're doing on the smart contract, because it's a more limited space. Maybe you probably aren't using very complex data structures anyway. Right, so because you have more limited memory, and you have like fixed size accounts on the blockchain that you access, so they're not dynamic memory, so they don't expand. So because of that, it's almost like writing in Python. It's super simple. I wouldn't, I don't have I haven't written on any other smart contract platform. So, I struggle to come up with comparisons. I just trust that, Anatoly did it, and he was super convinced that you should write it in Rust, and I think he's probably right. So it's probably
Yeah,
just
I
a better
mean,
language.
yeah, and I hear that also from almost all of the engineers that I respect. When I talk to them about like, hey, what's up with this Rust thing, uh, they almost always say that it's like a fantastic language. Like I rarely hear people saying like, oh no, fuck Rust, go to write it in C or C++ instead. Like I don't think I've ever heard that from any of the guys that I
Yeah,
respect.
I
So
would never write in C++ again.
yeah. Um, okay, so all right, so yeah, I don't really have much more when it comes to Solana as a network. I think most people here are pretty convinced that, like, I mean, so one thing that you
still on the topic of dev here, the main challenges for me were not actually Rust. It was the Solana. It was designed from the ground up for speed and efficiency, which is a good thing. Like when you're like, okay, whoever designed this really cared. Like, in fact, speed and efficiency was like you can tell that's the main thing that they cared about. And as a result, some things are a little bit different. You don't just access any memory you want. You have to pass in exactly the segments of the blockchain state that you're going to access, right? And like this is a kind of this is a new thing that you have to wrap your mind around if you're coming in from Ethereum. So I would say that's Rust. Like people like worried about Rust. Don't be worried about Rust. Also don't be worried about Solana, honestly. But yeah, there's more challenges there in trying to understand the account system and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed as well, just from a product and user experience point of view. That there's one of the things I immediately noticed, and I did one of these threads on it, which Sam reacted to as well last year, where it's just confusing when you have an SPL token and you have to create a different address to receive the SPL token into that address rather than your Solana address. Is one of the things that my early complaints in the Solana Discord and the Serum Discord. I was like, how is this going to work? Like, it's great that you don't have to do this on Ethereum. You have to do an approval when you're sending the token, which is an annoying step. But in Solana, until recently at least, you had to also generate a separate address. So, like, imagine if you're on Ethereum. For people that aren't using Solana, don't understand. Imagine you're on Ethereum. You have an address 0x blah 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 blah, and then you want to receive Tether to your Ethereum account. You would actually have to generate a different Ethereum address just to receive that Tether, which to me was like that. That's how it works on Solana, but this has. I don't know if that's related to the account point that you were making, but that's the wallet UX has changed, thankfully. Like this is basically like when I brought it up last summer, Anatoly was like, yeah, that's just a wallet user experience thing. That's fine. We can abstract that away. So, and then I was like, I was basically adamant that when you have a Solana account, an address, you should just be able to receive SPL tokens into it. You shouldn't have to think about generating a separate address. Like that whole UX is just going to be too annoying to deal with. And these days, it is that way. Like I actually onboarded someone to Solana earlier today, and they gave me their Solana account. I told them to go to solid.io and generate an address, and I was able to send them Tether, USDC, and SOL, and just to that address, right? And that's a major improvement. Was that totally unrelated to what the point you were making? Or?
Yeah. That's actually that's one of the things, because that's one of the consequences of the accounts model. But also, again, like it got abstracted away, and so now you don't have to deal with that. But I mean, on that point, it's weird because I'm like a Solana native, because I just I didn't mess around with DeFi. Maybe I made like one transaction per year on Ethereum. And then I did Solana, and then I went back, and somebody was trying to send me Tether, and I was looking around for like my Tether address, and I was like confused, like what's my ERC20 tether address? And like, I was actually nervous. I was like, wait, so I just send him my Ethereum. Oh yeah, I just sent him my Ethereum address. That's right. So yeah, maybe part of it is just like which thing you encounter first. But anyway, it's all abstracted away, and so now it looks similar to Ethereum.
Yeah, and so now in Soleil, if you are on the wallet, you just basically don't have to think. I mean, there's still the accounts are still there, the separate addresses are still there, but for all intents and purposes, if you want to transact with people, you just use you use that just main Solana account address. The other thing, curious what you, since we're on this general like Solana discussion, dev discussion, what do you think about checksumming for addresses? There was old buddy of mine, not so fast, on Twitter, who accidentally he was typing in methodically his Solana address that he generated on an air-gapped machine. He mistyped it, even though he checked it 3 or 4 times. He mistyped it when he was sending his Solana bags over, and he lost 75% of his stack because he sent it to an address that wasn't the same as the one that he had generated. There was one character off. What do you think about like checksumming and like having different address formats that help resolve these kinds of issues?
Well, I know in Solid, it does do that check to tell you that like this is okay. Now look, I didn't know anybody ever manually copied over addresses before.
It was an air-gapped machine. In his defense, it was an air-gapped machine that he had,
yeah,
where the account was generated, and he was typing it in manually on the online machine to send it to the air-gapped machine.
Yeah, maybe I don't know how would a checksum. Oh, I see. You do the checksum.
It's like a best32 address
on the
like,
first place and the second. Yeah. I mean, that would be good. I see that. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is something we gotta get. The Solana community. We got like a Telegram chat, and I mean, it really sucks that like losing 75%. I mean, did he? Wow. I mean, if I manually type something, I'm one of the cool things about Solana is, you know how in Ethereum, so on crypto in general, like everyone's super nervous about sending to the wrong address, or at least I still am, even after all these years. And I always send a test transaction. So like if I'm going to send like 100K or something, I send like $10 first, $10 worth first. And in Solana, that's actually super easy. Like on Ethereum, if you're going to send a $200 transaction, you don't want to do a test because a test itself will be like $50 in transaction fees. But in Solana, you just do this test of like 1 cent, and no one cares. You don't even think about the fees. So I definitely I recommend doing that test transaction. 100% if you like manually typed it out. But yeah.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, so I brought this up to Anatoly as well, and he had some kind of argument that like this doesn't actually help solve the underlying issue. I mean, I don't know. I'm a simple guy. I think that having clear like a clear identifier for Solana addresses is much nicer, right? Because like right now you just have a garbled mess of characters, and it's like, here, send my address here. It would be nice if there was like a nice SOL prefix or something that made this clear.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how that would be. Yeah, actually, no. I think that's like doable and maybe adds value. But that would only add value to like distinguish between a Solana address and some other, base 58 encoded string. I don't know enough about about other blockchains that also use the same kind of string.
Yeah, I mean, to me it's good branding too. Like you're sending around an address and it's like, that's a Solana address. Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think have it start off with like SOL, that would be cool.
And then checks. I mean, maybe I'm getting hung up on this guy's experience, but a checksumming thing that would just sort of like tell you this character is wrong. I've tried this on Bcash, um, BCH. They use and then also you have it for Bash 32, but like they have this like cache address format where it'll tell you like what the character is wrong and that you need to change it, and otherwise the checksum doesn't fails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not get hung up on this because I know Anatoly has a different view on it. But let's shift to the from the Solana discussion to Mango. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, as like a preview, basically Mango markets in its current iteration, what you guys have built, and this is the cool thing, is that you guys didn't like float just an idea to people and get them hyped. Like, you have a product, it's already out there, it's already working. People can go right now to trade.mango.markets, and basically I'll just describe it how I understand it, and then you can sort of add anything else. But basically it's connected to Serum. It's using the Serum spot liquidity underneath the, like if you're looking at the order book, that's just all Serum. So Mango isn't doing anything when it comes to that, but it does have basically this margin account thing. So if you have BTC, ETH, or USDT, and I guess for BTC and ETH, it's the solid wrapped BTC and ETH, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so there's this margin account, and depending on which asset you choose, and you want to deposit Bitcoin, ETH, or USDT, you basically, you're sending your funds to. It's not the same account for all the assets, or is there one margin account where you send whatever asset to it, or is it different addresses that you want to send to each one?
So how it works under the hood is like a user has a margin account, which is like the segment of memory. And a user may have many margin accounts, arbitrarily many margin accounts. And say you were going to deposit your BTC, your wrapped BTC. You would call this function, and you would send your BTC into the Mango vault, right? So the Mango vault is like the Mango BTC wallet. And at the same time, your margin account balances would be incremented to account for the fact that you just deposited BTC. And there's some more technical details there, but that's basically it. You're just keeping track of your BTC balance in the margin account.
Okay, and so basically, you got the three support for the three assets. If I right now then deposit 1,000 USDT into my margin account, it's basically automatically going into a lending pool that of USDT, which then people who don't have USDT and then want to buy Bitcoin or ETH against USDT, they'll automatically be borrowing, like they'll go negative in their USDT, which will create a borrow, and so those borrows would go against the deposits that someone like me who has just put 1,000 tether in will come from that.
Yeah, exactly. And so to start gaining interest, you deposit, and it goes into the lending pool for other people to borrow your USDT, and so it just immediately starts gaining interest. And another cool thing, obviously, if you have 0 USDT and let's say 1 Bitcoin, you can actually buy another Bitcoin. Just borrow enough USDT to buy another Bitcoin. But say you had USDT and you wanted to buy Bitcoin, you could also kind of just treat it as a spot market, just cash spot market. Instead of doing it on Serum, you might go through Mango. And the reason why you might want to go through Mango is like we have pooled fees, we pool our Serum together, and our fees are reduced as a group. So it's, unless you have more than 100,000 Serum, you're probably better off buying via Mango, because you're just just reducing your fees, and so you can just treat it as a spot market. You don't even have to use any of the leverage.
Yeah. So on Serum, the fees that you pay are determined by how much SRM you stake. And so what you're saying is that Mango is executing all the trades from all the margin accounts from essentially the same account owner, which has staked all of these SRM, and therefore is able to leverage the fact that it's a sole execution, a sole source of execution, that it's able to then get discounted fees for everybody as a group.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, for most people right now, they would get better fees on Mango than doing it on just on Serum Dex. So there's an incentive right there.
That's one incentive, but then they would also kind of have to trust that the code is working properly and they're not you're depositing their funds into this margin account, right?
Yeah. So for sure, the margin, the Mango margin program is riskier than Serum Dex. I mean, Serum Dex is probably very low risk. It's been running longer. It's less complicated, so it's much lower risk than Mango margin. So yeah, definitely, you would be taking on this extra risk. But if you deposit and then you do the trade and then you withdraw, you don't have to take on that risk for very long. Like if there's an exploit, then you don't have your money in there, so you don't have that risk.
Yeah, so you'd have to deposit it into the margin account, do the execution, then withdraw it back into your main account, and then you maintain the custody of it, which is really the whole point of DEXs in the end. Is like you want to maintain control of your funds as long as possible. So do you think, so obviously the fact that so as soon as you deposit into the Mango system, you are relinquishing control of your assets effectively, right?
It's in some sense. I don't know. I still think you still have custody over it. The real dangerous part here is that there's an upgrade authority, right? And so the program code can be upgraded. And so today, as a result of that, because we're in like beta and we're like upgrading the code, yeah. So today there's you still have control over it, but it's not as secure as what we have planned. So but to be fair, that's also, I think Serum Dex also has the upgrade authority. Like Solana's governance, like we're all trying to just build the governance up so that we can give up the upgrade authority to the governance protocol, and then you don't have to worry, basically.
So on Serum, if I create a limit order which requires 1,000 USDT for me to buy whatever, then that's also sort of in their control in a way where through the upgrade authority they could do some kind of something, if they were evil, do something bad to take the funds.
Yeah, I think so. And it's and I guess I'm not so worried, but that if I would certainly say if you were worried about that, then you would probably have to wait only like 3-4 more months before we get rid of it. I honestly hate it. I hate that there's upgrade authority, and it's just like kind of a convenience decision that we've taken. But I hate it, and we're getting rid of it, and we'll make big noise when we get rid of it.
So what's the and the upgrade authority is just like you got the keys, or you and Max have the keys, or something like that?
Yeah, there's this foundation that we set up that it's a nonprofit foundation that is holding the keys. Yeah.
And so when you mention this thing like upgrade authority and stuff like that, it makes me wonder like how easy is it for guys like us? So there's some engineers that are listening. Like, how can we review the Mango code and see these things? Is this something that, by virtue of it being on Solana, it's just open source if we dig enough and find it, or do you have to publish it on GitHub for us to see the code?
You know what? So some teams don't publish their code. But okay, so Mango, by the way, Mango publishes all the code. It's all open source, and it's it's all tagged, and like you'll see we have used the upgrade authority, but it's like super minor things, like removing borrow limits. Had to use the upgrade authority to remove the borrow limits.
Yeah.
So the code is all there and it's all open source, and then you can verify that it's the code that you see on GitHub is the same code that is running on chain. You can do that verification. But I don't know if it's possible, and this is probably a question for Anatoly. I don't know if it's possible to take the compiled code that's running on chain and then like reverse engineer it and see the kind of the source. It's probably possible. I don't know if anybody's done it.
How do you verify then? By compiling and matching it with what's on chain, or?
Yeah, actually, we have. You download it, and we like on our, the foundation has a GitHub, and you can. Well, it's called the Blockworks Foundation. So Blockworks-Foundation/Mango. You would look at it. Well, no, you compile with the tools that we've mentioned there, the Solana tools that we used, and then you would look at the .so file, like the binary of the SO file, and compare it against the data buffer that's at the program ID. I don't know if that's like too technical, but that's.
So yeah, no, I mean that's useful to know. I mean, so one thing that hits me is that like kind of sucks if there are programs on chain that you can't even like read open source and see what's going on them. I'm not sure if that is that how it works on Ethereum. Like, can you just like publish code and nobody can actually decompile, reverse engineer it, and figure out what's going on? Like, does somebody have to publish it in order for you to match what's compiled on chain versus the source code?
I would guess so. But again, I don't know enough about this.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason why, I mean, not to regress back into the whole Solana network discussion stuff, but that's part of one of the core principles, right? Like being able to see what's going on, like transparency, not just in like seeing the transactions on chain, but like what's going on underneath. What are these programs doing? Are they gonna just randomly steal my money? Like these are good things to know.
Yeah, and so I agree with you. I'm not sure if it's possible to like take what's on chain and reverse engineer. You can always reverse engineer like the specific operations and all that stuff, but like can you make sense of it in any way? I'm not sure.
Well, I know like Russian teenagers that can decompile software and make key generators to break the software. So I assume someone smart enough can dig into
you just got to get those Russian teenagers to do it for the blockchain and Solana and Ethereum. But look, that's honestly, I mean, in my opinion, and what we have strived to do is we publish all the code, and we publish the UI code as well. Sometimes we work on it in private, we work on it in private, but then when we publish it, we open source the code. I think that's kind of like the spirit of crypto, right? Even the upgrade authority is not in the spirit of crypto, honestly, in my opinion. It's just like a tough decision of, either you wait to make the very perfect thing and then you deploy it, which can never be taken back, or you kind of stay in beta mode and test, and then you pull the keys from yourself. You throw away the keys, and that way, the people who are willing to take the risk, and then people who are unwilling to take the risk. You seem to be the kind of person who like really digs in and like looks at all the details. So the people who don't want to take that risk, they can also eventually use Mango markets, and they'll use a much better version in a few months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's as long as it's verifiable, then I think it's cool, right? Like as long as the code, even if there's like a semicolon missing or something, then I would be able to tell the difference between what's on chain there in the program ID versus what the source compares to. So, yeah, verifying ability is the most important part. Okay, so going back to the product, so we've got two use cases we've already discussed. One is if you just want to do spot trading, you can use Mango and leverage the fact that uh, everybody's staking a bunch of SRM on there, and you're getting lower fees to trade on Serum spot DEX. Um, the other use case we just brought up was just earning interest on your deposits. So as soon as you deposit funds into your margin account with Mango, it's in the lending pool. How often should I expect interest? So I can see right now I have USDT deposited in my margin account. Interest rate shows as 3.53%. I assume that's a APR. How
Yep.
often? How often am I getting a payout on my USDT if I have a deposit in there?
Yeah, so it's continuous payout. So the way basically every instruction that interacts with the Mango program updates. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the mechanism here, but like it basically pays everyone's updates everyone's balances, right? Anytime
So
anyone does anything, and so you know you're yeah, it could be every second, or it could be more than that, but at the time where you withdraw, you will obviously get your interest. There's no like you have to wait this long or that long. It's
right, because
really,
that
I
would
think the minimum
be
is 1 second actually. Yeah.
so withdrawing would be the minimum event, the next event that would have triggered like the interest payout kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's worst case
If
scenario.
nothing else
If
happens,
somebody
yeah.
else didn't do anything in between on Mango, then at least you deposited and then you withdraw. Then at the time that you withdraw, that will updates everyone's balances, everyone's
So,
interest.
and this goes both ways. So the credit to the depositors and the debit to the borrowers.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Um, that's a strange concept in and of itself to me, like continuous interest payouts. I mean, obviously, anyone who's done basic finance and stuff, like you always look at compounding and then continuous compounding with E and all that stuff. But in terms of like as traders, we normally need to have like a proper accounting of everything that's happened in our account. Like we've traded X for Y and paid Z fee. We've received A% interest, and so normally one would expect like ledger entries or account log entries that are reflecting like, okay, at this time I received this much interest, or in this case with continuous payouts, I would be interesting to see like at least with over this time period I have received this much interest. From what I could tell in using it over the past couple of months, or maybe it's been a few months now, it's not really easy to see that. Like there's a trade history that's been added, but I don't really see anything that tells me like you've earned this much interest. It's just sort of like I can't even verify it. How do I see what interest has come in?
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. Honestly, so the way to do that for us would be, because we have the trades, um, we would, like on the front end, I think um, you have to do some calculations and back out the interest payments. And this is like on our Trello board. We have this Trello board for all our dev, all the work that needs to be done. This is on there. I think I think it was just like not high enough priority yet, because we're still thinking something like, hey, Mango margin is cool, but this isn't going to beat Binance, so let's think about the next thing. And so we haven't. Well, I mean that's not true. We have spent a lot of time on the user interface, and we have a good one. And hold on one sec. Yeah, so I just wanted to go see like if our all right. Well, I don't think we're quite publishing it yet. But anyway, In the next couple of days, it should definitely be published. So the new UI should be a lot better.
Oh, the
No,
new
not interest. But we've sort of been cleaning up, a lot of the small issues, and the code base itself was really ugly. So I think having an interest payments, and even like having I think in the Trello board I described it as a reports page, where you can see like reports on your performance, your charts on your portfolio value and interest earned, interest paid, so forth.
It's every trader needs this. Like either we have to build our own tools where we suck in the raw data and do it ourselves, or there's some kind of reporting there. But the goofy thing about DeFi, and I think it's especially an issue on Solana, is that there's all this trading activity, all this staking activity. I can't even keep track of it. I have to. What do I have to do? I have to like scrape the data off the blockchain myself. And
yeah, I know the IRS doesn't care. They still.
Well, if I can't figure it out, how the fuck are they gonna figure it out?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. Maybe they just make up a number.
Oh fuck, that's sure they will. But so my point is like, reporting and accurate records are essential to a trader's toolkit. And obviously, you mentioned that this is like on your roadmap or whatever you call this Trello board thing. But like this is I think a broader issue on Solana. Like all this stuff is going on chain. I can't even keep track of it myself. It's impossible to do it in a spreadsheet because if you're staking enough, you're trading enough. Like, what are you really supposed to keep track of all of this? So how much of this do you think is like, oh, that's a Solana problem and they need to solve that? And how much do you think this is a Mango problem and Mango needs to do stuff to resolve these issues?
Oh no, I mean I think this is I would say this is an early stage blockchain kind of problem. It gets shoved to the side because people, it's like, so my mindset has been, we want to expand the offerings, and then we know like this is the final state. So if you think of Mango margin, Mango markets or Mango margin as like a V0, the thing that we had to build to win the hackathon, then one trade-off that we face, and I think probably everyone faces in DeFi, is, okay, now we can like, that was we learned a lot. We built this thing, but now we can build the next bigger thing, and we don't want to spend too much time on the V0, like because all the structure might change in V1 or V2.
No.
Right. So I don't think it's I think it's just like manpower is limited, and trying to prioritize what's like the most important thing is hard. By the way, like there is like Serum Tax Time, which I haven't looked into too closely, but they were also a hackathon winner, and they I think that's just for Serum though, that to keep track of like your trades on Serum. And there's also Step Finance, which I think is also trying to like solve these problems.
Yeah.
And I think that's also, one thing is like we are really good at so there aren't that many people who can like build the complex financial engineering smart contract stuff. So we've stayed a little bit more focused on that. But anyway, yeah, we know, and we like, I mean, I agree with you. I can't. I would like to know how much I've paid in interest.
Yeah, and
it's like pretty important.
Yeah. So and I mean, and yeah, Serum tax time. Yeah, that covers Serum stuff, but not so much the if you're borrowing, the interest you pay, or the deposits, the interest you receive. And we'll get to the further plans after that you were sort of alluding to there. I just want to finish going over what like you guys have now, and then we'll jump to Perpetuals, which you have in store.
Yeah.
But so okay, we're in margin trading. You deposit funds, and then you're in this margin pool, that this lending, that is lending pool, which is other people can borrow. So if I deposit, let's say that you and I are the only traders on Mango. I deposit 100 USDT. You deposit some BTC as collateral, and then you decide to buy ETH with USDT, and you borrow my 100 USDT to buy ETH. Are you with me?
Yep, yep.
What do I do? Is my USDT stuck? Can I withdraw it? What's going on?
Yep, your USDT is stuck. So luckily, so if I borrow, all of your 100 USDT, you have kind of you basically have one option, which is and you want your USDT back. You have one option, which is wait, and you'll be collecting 100% interest while you wait. So at least there's that. So you wait for the guy to the person who borrowed to sell his position, or you wait until somebody else deposits USDT, because it's all fungible. If somebody else deposits 100 USDT, then you can withdraw your 100, and now that guy is going to be getting the 100% interest, and you get your USDT back. So in practice, this is going to be kind of rare that this happens. Probably in like super, it might happen in super illiquid, very rare scenarios, but where there's millions of dollars, there's already millions of dollars lent out there. So it's unlikely that literally every single penny is borrowed. But yeah, if it does happen, at least you're getting 100% interest.
And okay, so yeah, there's no like special accounting going on where money that doesn't exist. Like this is a system that if you're borrowing funds, those funds exist from somewhere else, and all that stuff is in line. I noticed that the interest rate when I'm in the trade tab here, so showing like for deposit it's 3.53%. For borrow though it's 7.1%. What's the differential there? What's going on there?
Yeah, so it's purely the fact that there are a lot more lenders than there are borrowers, or not in terms of number of people, but like if you go to the stats page, for example. So I look at the stats page and I see now it's there's 5.8 million in deposits, in USDT deposits, and there's 2.9 million in borrows. So basically half here, right? Half of it's borrowed. So the borrowers have to pay all the interest that they pay, which is 7%, has to be split among twice as much in deposits, right? So that's why in the case right now, the borrow interest is 7.1 and the deposit interest is 3.5. That totally accounts for the discrepancy. There's no fees or anything like that. It's just yeah.
Okay, cool. And so I just posted in the chat this Mango Docs overview thing about just so people that could look at it and have some context. But could you describe to people how this interest rate is being determined?
Yeah, so it's a super simple linear function, and this, I mean, we might change this, possibly, especially when governance is up and we no longer have the. I'm kind of reluctant to be changing stuff too much, kind of want to get governance up, and then we'll change. We could change the interest rate, but basically the interest rate right now is super simple. It's there's like a target utilization, which is 70%. And so the interest that borrowers pay goes up slowly as the utilization goes to 70%. So in utilization is just total borrows divided by total deposits. So it goes up slowly up to 70% utilization, which point it's 10% interest. And then above that utilization, if people are still borrowing, the interest starts climbing more quickly, up to a maximum interest of 100%. So it's just like two slopes. There's a there's a shallow slope. I don't know what you call. Yeah, there's a steep slope and the opposite of steep, whatever the opposite of steep is. Yeah, and that's a interest rate function we just chose because, and it's very similar to Aave on Ethereum, but maybe sometime in the future we actually set interest rates by the market. You know, you just instead of this interest rate function, you actually borrow on an order book, and people and the interest rate is set on the market. But for right now, yeah, that's how the interest rate works.
Cool. Yeah, it could either be an order book or it could be similar to like FTX, where there's sort of people express their interest at certain prices and then it clears at a given price or whatever. So, okay, the UX of this is something that certain traders might not be very used to on certain platforms. For example, if you're trading margin and if you put in, let's say, 1,000 USDT and you want to go long on Bitcoin, some traders, they prefer to see, like, rather than right now, if you did that on Mango, it would actually do a spot trade to buy Bitcoin, and then you would. If you wanted to get longer on Bitcoin, you use the Bitcoin as collateral to borrow more USDT in order to buy more Bitcoin. But well, I would say most. I would say some traders like to see their position as like an object. So they have collateral that they've put down, and then they take a long position. They can see long X Bitcoin. Here's your PNL. Here's your average entry price. Your USDT doesn't get touched. It's just collateral that's backing this position that you have. But instead, the UX is more like what FTX does, and the maths is all the same. I should clarify to anyone listening, it's all the same, but it's basically just represented in the more simple accounting, where you have a negative balance, which is borrow if you don't have the asset, and a positive balance if you have acquired the asset. The positive balance is your assets, negative balance is your borrows, which are liabilities, and then the system computes a collateralization ratio, and in order to create the position, you need to have the assets in excess of liabilities to the tune of 1.2 or 120%. And then if your account at any point gets below 110%, so your assets are only at or below 110% of the liabilities, then the system will liquidate you, which is something I want to get into more detail on. But the first thing, though, is have you heard this feedback before? And what do you think in general about the validity of this idea? People, they don't want to spend the USDT. They just want to have it as collateral to hold some position. So it feels more like almost like a margin trade or something, or a futures trade.
Yeah, I think that's the typical. Yeah, people basically want to see their collateral and their position as separate things, or some people do. And like you said, mathematically, it's all the same. We can. So again, these are kind of cosmetic or user interface level changes. It's harder to separate positions. It's harder than you might think to like think of someone's position. And just so people are clear what exactly we're talking about, it's a scenario where you deposit 1,000 USDT, and you say you buy one Ethereum, which is say $2,000. On some exchanges, on some centralized exchanges, you would borrow 2,000 USDT, and then you would have 2 Ethereum as as your position. You get 2 Ethereum as your position. On Mango, what happens is the first $1,000, because you already have $1,000, use that to buy half an Ethereum, half an Ether, and then the other half you borrow. So you borrow 1,000 more Tether to buy the other half of Ether. So now you've borrowed only 1,000 Ether. So that's like our system is easier to implement and also minimizes the interest rate paid. So when you have 1,000 USDT as collateral, and then you also then borrow 2,000 USDT. Now you're paying interest on those 2,000 USDT, and you're earning interest on 1,000. It ends up being that you end up paying more interest. And maybe you could even, I don't know, camouflage it with some user interface magic. But yeah, those are kind of user interface things. The positions are hard to determine though, and the positions are like, just as an example. I mean, say you buy one BTC, and then you sell some of the ether that you already have in your as collateral, and then you borrow USDT to buy more BTC. Like it's not clear. It's not clear what your position really is in that case. It's like all jumbled up. It's hard. It's hard to go into it without boring everyone. But like, if you actually try to do it and like try to figure out, is he long BTC here, or is he short Ether, or what's going on? Like it's not super straightforward.
Yeah, it's one of those things I've tackled. I've had tackled this kind of issue and talked with FTX about their system, because it's actually exactly the same as what FTX does, and I was providing similar feedback to them on this. I mean, the thing is one of those things where mathematically there's multiple correct approaches to get the answer. So, like we said, the mathematics is the same underneath, but whether you're representing it as just assets and liabilities and different assets, or if you're saying that maybe it's a long BTC USDT and a short ETH USDT position together, rather than just a long Bitcoin short ETH. Like, there's different valid ways to the positions concept becomes malleable in this sense. You can sort of produce it in multiple ways. So I think I would actually disagree with you slightly that it's only a user interface thing. I think it is something that requires actually back-end sort of considerations and changes to enforce a certain position, like object type structure, which is why it's such an annoying issue. It's not just like, oh, let's paint some UI UX on it. It's actually goes a bit slightly deeper than that, because of how it can be represented. Like, it changes whether or not you're paying interest on something, or whether you're receiving interest on something. So there are actual real issues with it.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah. So if you want to actually make the clean distinction of positions, then probably you also, and actually if you go back in the Git logs, the history of the Mango program, you'll notice the first thing I had, like the first week of it, was there was positions there actually, and later I just decided to get rid of it because it was super annoying, doing a bunch of extra calculations to keep track of positions. So yeah, you're right. I think we just went with a simpler thing, and my philosophy is always like, go with the simple thing, because people's money is on the line, and simpler things are harder to break. And so the more intellectually challenging something is, I just shy away from it, because there's more chance of error.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay. So one thing that I have already sort of mentioned to you offline, but I want to mention for the benefit of others. So you've already mentioned Aave, and on Aave you can sort of deposit ETH and then borrow USDT against it. So far as we've discussed Mango, it's this borrowing and lending layer on top of Serum. But these events are only happening when you're actually doing trades. At the moment, from what I can tell, it's not possible for me to say deposit 1 ETH and then borrow 1,000 USDT against that 1 ETH of collateral. Why is there a reason why this wouldn't be possible within the current construct? And that's going after already a huge DeFi Lego building block out there, which is Aave and Compound and others, which is over collateralized borrowing and lending. Like, it doesn't have to even have this Serum stuff really involved with it.
Yeah. I mean, so it can totally just be lending. We can add lending. Not add. There was, again, no change to the program code at all. All we would have to do is a user interface change where simply allow users to withdraw more than they have available, and just and the Mango program has a borrow function, and so just call that borrow function and do it. Right now, it's just like it hasn't been enabled because, well, it would take a user interface person to understand what's going on, understand, like, if you hit the max button, I think FTX does this as well, right? Like you can just deposit BTC and withdraw USD. I think FTX allows this.
You 100% can do that. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's cool, and you can do it on Mango too. It's like it's a user interface thing. Yeah, maybe we'll get it done this week. Yeah, like our main user interface wizard has been working on basically cleaning up the code. A lot of corners were cut to try to win the hackathon, and so he's been like down in the cave and just hacking away and built Mango from scratch, basically, the user interface. So now, once he has a little bit more free time, maybe he just cranks this out. Probably this can be done this week. The only issue I see with it is, right now we only have 3 tokens, right? BTC, ETH, and USDT, and it's not going to stay like that forever. But I think that's one reason why we haven't been very quick to allow borrows. It just hasn't been, because people want other tokens and they want to be able to lend or borrow against like their Solana or their Radium or something. But
yeah,
anyway,
but
it
good.
is a cool.
Like this,
yeah,
this is one of those building blocks, right? Like your margin trading is like a subset in a way of this broader borrowing and lending stuff, and so being able to say like, oh, we got that thing that Aave and Compound have, and I know that Oxy is coming out with all kinds of stuff which is meant to be similar to this, so maybe that makes it less urgent in some way as well. But that'll boost to the utilization of the pools that are already there. So if it is an easy win, then I would say why not?
yeah, before. So the borrow limits were only removed like a few days ago, and so you could still have multiple accounts to borrow, but you were limited to something pretty low. It was like 15K at first, and then it became 50K. But now that those limits are removed, it certainly makes sense for us to just go in, basically allow people to withdraw coins that they don't have. It's like totally. I mean, this one really is a user interface thing.
No,
Yeah.
I got you on that. Yeah. So okay, and obviously you wouldn't be able to do it leveraged. You would be maintaining collateral on the deposit side in excess of the amount that you borrow and withdraw. So just so people are because of, you can leverage within the margin account to take positions, but if this thing were implemented, it wouldn't. So people that are wanting to trade on here, what kind of leverage can they get by longing or shorting Bitcoin and ETH versus USDT? Because those are the 2 pairs that you offer. Like what kind of leverage can people get?
5x leverage. Pretty straightforwardly 5x leverage.
Yep, and basically they get liquidated when they reach 10x leverage.
Yep. If your margin ratio goes to 10%, in the terminology of margin trading, right? If your margin ratio is below the maintenance margin ratio, you get liquidated, and our maintenance margin ratio is 10%. Or you could talk about it as collateral ratio, which is just plus 100%. All right. So maintenance collateral ratio is 110. If you go below that, you get liquidated.
Right. And let's talk about how liquidations and risk are managed in this system. So it is a decentralized system. So there is no special central bank or company or exchange behind it that is just guaranteeing these positions, and the market can get quite volatile. So let's talk about, like, okay, if someone gets long on ETH and ETH drops very quickly, like minus 10%. How do you handle the liquidations? So I take the position in Serum. Like, I'm executing spot trades on Serum, which are changing my balances in the margin account, and I have certain borrows which are coming from this lending pool that we talked about, which are from other depositors, and then the asset side of my balance sheet is deteriorating in value because the price is dropping remarkably. So the first thing is, how are you valuing my position? So if I'm long ETH on my deposit side and I've got these borrows in USDT, how are you valuing what that's worth? Is it coming just directly from the Serum uh, market price, or how are you calculating it?
Yeah, so it's not coming from the Serum market price. The basically, if anytime you try to borrow, or anytime your collateral ratio is like, it's necessary to know your collateral ratio. Your accounts, the value of your account, the value of your assets, and the value of your liabilities are calculated using Price Oracle. And the Price Oracle is this median of 3 centralized exchanges that's being pumped on chain. So it's FTX, Bitstamp, and Coinbase. And the median of those is a Price Oracle. And we decided not to go with Serum DEX as the price, because the liquidity isn't. The liquidity might. The liquidity there is good right now, but during like a sharp market turn, liquidity might be less than good. And also there's a self-referential aspect of it where there could be like a feedback loop. Liquidations on Mango end up on Serum DEX, and then as a result, Serum DEX price goes lower and triggers more liquidations on Mango, and so forth. So we avoided that whole thing, went with Oracle.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so I'm long on ETH. The price is running down on the Oracle. My I've lost more money than I have as collateral, or like that 10% that I'm needing to hold in margin. Um, Normally, I would think in this situation you would somehow force sell my ETH into USDT to repay the borrows. Like, you would dump my position in Serum and get that over to pay the borrows. But that's not how you're managing the liquidations. Could you tell everyone how exactly the system works, and including this new partial liquidation stuff that you guys have added?
Yeah, so we have we have full liquidations and we have partial liquidations, and actually probably full liquidations probably will be deprecated at some point. But that's also there. So full liquidation is when your account goes below 110% collateral ratio, and if someone can deposit into your account enough funds, whether it's BTC, ETH, or USDT, they get your account above 120%, they take over your entire account, right? And they make that profit of whatever that. If your account is 105, then they'll basically make like this 5% profit by depositing and taking over your account. But then the risk is theirs. Now they have to dump it on Serum DEX, or they have to dump it on some. They can maybe transfer it into FTX and dump it there. Or not dump it at all. It's totally up to them. It's their margin account now. So that's full liquidation. Partial liquidation, which was just implemented last week, was where a margin account that has borrowed Tether, let's say, and went long ETH. that person, the partial liquidator, can deposit Tether or whatever is the borrowed currency, and they can take out your collateral currency, whatever collateral currencies you have in your account. So it could be
What if you have
BTC, it could be
Bitcoin
ETH.
and ETH? Can they
Yeah, yeah,
choose which?
yeah. They can choose which, or they can take both. And the amount that they get is 105% of the value that they deposited in. So that's their incentive. They get that 5% profit right there. And then now again, it's their responsibility. When they deposited the Tether, that Tether is used to pay back the loan, and a part of their collateral is taken from them and given to the liquidator, and liquidator can now decide what to do with it. Same thing. We decided not to go with like on-chain liquidations where the program itself sells your position on Serum DEX, because I in my experience with markets, it's a lot of things go bad all at the same time, and especially if there's a lot of liquidations happening, I know a lot of other bad things are happening, and it's likely that the Serum DEX order book might not be so liquid. And maybe the only liquid markets are like on FTX, and in which case the liquidator should take on that risk, and instead of the program crashing and like trying to liquidate you, and there's no bids on the order book and all that kind of crazy stuff. So just trying to avoid all those, because I know when one bad thing happens, a lot of bad things are also happening at the same time.
Yeah, it comes in clusters. So, what this liquidator that you mentioned? Who has access to liquidators? Is it like SBF and jump trading in a smoke-filled room, and they're sitting there with their
I
control panel
wish.
saying,
Yeah, I mean, I wish actually they don't have time actually to do this. But so liquidators are they're actually nice guys. They're the guys who are they're the police. They're keeping the lenders' money safe. And so we are running one of the liquidators, and we really should open source our code. The only reason I haven't open sourced the liquidator is because I wrote it and it's really ugly, and I am embarrassed to open source it. But well, we're trying to get not just the liquidator that I wrote, but there's other talented people who have written their own liquidators, and so just having multiple different types of liquidators, and we're also trying to get like a liquidator page. I believe a developer in the community is working on that right now. Is a page on Mango Markets where you can just go and see if there's any accounts that you can liquidate right now. And so we're working on a diverse set of, you want a lot of people running liquidators with it could be SBF. We'd love to have SBF doing it. But I think SBF himself requested that page because he was like, he's not going to run a bot, but he might check Mango and decide to liquidate something if there's a nice juicy account there. But yeah, it's decentralized. Anyone can be it. Like, you don't have to trust. If you've traded on BitMEX, or really any exchange, and you wake up one day and your account's gone, liquidated, and you don't really know what happened or why it happened, how it happened, that kind of thing it still could happen to you in Mango, but it's less of a problem because you can go see the transactions, you see exactly what your account value was, and the code and everything. So it's fully transparent.
So in theory, or I guess even kind of in practice, but in terms of how pragmatic it is to see this, I can tell you out of experience, I got wrecked on Mango. I got liquidated.
Oh wow.
And I woke up one day, I logged into Mango, and it made a whole new margin account for me. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And it wasn't only, as I couldn't see anything that happened. There was no like, here's your liquidation logs, sir. You got wrecked because this price changed to this, and your collateralization ratio got down, and this person scooped up your liquidation. I was totally in the dark. That led me to explore in a bit more detail, and it turns out that at least this was like full liquidation. That so this margin account where people are depositing their assets and they're borrowing and stuff like that, it actually has an owner, right? It's just a simple. This goes back to our account system that we talked about in Solana. That this margin account has an owner, and in the liquidation process, my understanding is that you actually transfer the owner from that account to a different account, which is the liquidator who controls it, which means I no longer have control of my margin account, actually. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very disorienting. I know it's, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have compared it to BitMEX. BitMEX is disorienting in a different way because because well, in my trading career, getting liquidated on BitMEX or OKX or wherever, I'm just like, I disagree. I'm like, well, I didn't deserve to be liquidated, that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. It's disorienting, and we actually a person in the community and who will be receiving the first big Mango grant, by the way, whenever the Mango tokens are minted. But
We'll get
a
to
person
that.
in the community made this margin call alert system where you can go. I think it's there actually. I think it's deployed.
I've tried it already. Yeah, it works. Where
Yeah.
basically you sign up with your email or SMS or Telegram. You tell them what your margin account is. You tell them what collateralization ratio you would like to be alerted on when it reaches that, and it'll basically ping you and say, "Hey, you're about to get liquidated." So it gives you time to come in, like a traditional margin call back in the day, where they would tell you, "Hey, buddy, top up your account, or you're gonna have trouble," and that gives you an opportunity to throw in some more assets to rescue your account. Yeah, no, I tried that. That was it worked somewhat. There were some things that I told him to. I suggested that he could fix, but yeah, I mean that ties in with the. So okay, I was being a bit unfair in mentioning that because it's true that the data is there on chain. It kind of goes back to the reporting issue from before. Like the data's there, but how the hell am I gonna?
There. It's just that again, a lot of the and by the way, if anybody is there who's a good UI developer, we definitely want you on the team. So it's all there. It's not quite like I will remind you. So we have been only working on this maybe for two and a half months roughly. 3 months, let's say, and so there's still a lot of rough edges here, and this is because I'm a trader. I know exactly. I'm like, because I've been liquidated on Mango as well. I shorted ETH like 10 times and got liquidated 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that this is a problem, and we're working on the getting the UI developers and like getting people onboarded so they can make this less disorienting.
Yeah, and the thing is that with multiple assets, it's it takes a bit more computation. Like I mean, yeah, I knew why I knew I got liquidated when I knew what my exposure was. I knew what would be impacting my exposure and what would potentially liquidate me. So I sort of knew. I was sort of excited to test and see what it would look like. But with multiple assets, you've got like it's kind of like, okay, what if Bitcoin goes up but ETH goes down, and then my borrow is in USDT, or what if my borrow's in ETH and my assets in Bitcoin? It becomes a bit more like it's always nice to see a report of like what happened and everything like that. And to your point, like the data is on there on chain, but there's so much going on Solana. If I go on an Explorer and I click around in my transactions, and stupidly enough, I was actually doing this. I was like, okay, everything's on chain. This is DeFi. I can see everything. So this is going to be cool. I want to see what it looks like, what the liquidation looks like on chain. Like everybody can see it basically. So I look into my account, look into the transaction history. There's all kinds of instructions, all kinds of crap. I can't make sense of what's up or down in there. And I know somewhere in that mess, that haystack, if someone understands all of the different instructions, they can scrape it and then produce like this is exactly what happened. But I couldn't do it with my naked eye.
Yeah, I mean, this is and you know, when we get to start talking about the DAO and our our token plans, this is kind of the problems that we want to solve. We want to build the usability. Like, there's a lot of usability things, and there's a lot of time required to go and make this easy on people. And our job isn't done until it's easier than Binance, right? And I don't know, I take that very seriously. So
I like how
just
you
gotta
always say,
hold tight for a few more months.
I like how it's always beat Binance, not beat FTX.
Well, yeah, FTX, they're buddies. They're buddies.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Well, FTX has implemented SPL, so that's like the main reason why I don't say beat FTX, because I think FTX has like when Mango does well, I think FTX is going to be one of the on ramps or pathways, like I don't think you lose. I think both are probably going to benefit there, because a centralized exchange has some benefits, and probably you would be trading on both FTX and Mango. In the kind of vision that I have.
Yeah, and so okay, so we've covered then the deposit side, the borrow side, how you're margin trading, how you're going to be able to treat it like Aave and Compound eventually. So we're now up to like 5 use cases or so. So yeah, we covered the liquidation.
So Aave and Compound thing, you say eventually, but like I'm aiming for this week. It is a smaller thing, yeah.
Okay. At least it's not 2 weeks. TM, the ultimate meme.
Yeah.
So okay, and we talked about how the interest rate gets set and how the liquidator works, and then hopefully eventually there's going to be a nice, like, anyone here can just be the liquidator that goes in. So the final thing I want to hit on that before we get into I know there's 2 big things that we definitely need to discuss, is the token stuff and the perpetuals, the plans for perpetuals, which is, I think, resolves a lot of the UX issues that we were talking about earlier, by the way. But last thing I want to hit on this, though, what is currently in prod, or I don't know if this counts as prod or beta, or it's real money, so it is prod for all intents and purposes. But you mentioned before, and I think this is an accurate way to describe it, but I want to highlight to people the risk on this, that the liquidators are like the police, the protectors of the lenders. And the reason for this is that I wanted to highlight a case where, like, what if the liquidators are all asleep? What if your bot is down and all the other guys, they're sleeping and their systems are down? And so let's say I get wrecked on my ETH long, and my collateralization ratio goes to 90%. So I'm in negative equity. Suddenly my assets are lower than my liabilities. Something has to add up, like we talked about earlier.
Yep.
If it's just you and me and I put tether in there, you borrow my tether, like that money is not just being created out of anywhere, and it's not like being magically appearing or something like that. So what happens if I go negative equity? I have borrows which are exceeding my deposits. Who's going to come in? Is the liquidator going to come in and they take the loss? Is the lender taking the loss? Is Mango taking the loss? Someone is holding the bag. So what's going on?
Yeah. Good point. So and this is the risk that you take when you lend on Mango, right? And okay, I don't want to over exaggerate this risk, but this is the risk, and the risk is when an account goes below 100% collateral ratio, they're essentially bankrupt, and there's money is lost. Who takes that loss? The loss is the lenders who lent that money. Now it's all in a pool, and everyone is basically everyone's going to share in that loss equally. So if somebody loses 100 tether, then everyone who has lent in the tether pool will take that loss.
Pro rata, right?
Yeah, pro rata. pro rata. So if there is, 1,000 USDT in the pool, or right now there's 6 million, right? It would be a very tiny, $100 would be a very tiny loss on all the lenders. But if the loss is bigger, then it could be pretty big. So the liquidator doesn't take that loss. It's on the lenders, and the lenders, there's no Federal Reserve to come bail us out. There's, the market kind of works. There's no free money. It's someone has to take the loss, and it'll be the lenders. That being said, the reason why we don't have, Mango doesn't have an insurance fund, so we don't have any fees at all, like zero fees, and as a result, there's nothing really to fund an insurance fund, and an insurance fund will come up in the next, whenever we launch the token, we would have a sale of tokens for the insurance fund, and there will be an insurance fund, but basically. Because there's no insurance fund, the losses go to the lenders directly, as a first line of defense. If there was an insurance fund, it would first try to pay out from the insurance fund, then go to the lenders. But right now, it's the lenders take the loss.
And what is that? Okay, what does that look like when you're because right now it's 3 assets, and if the insurance fund is meant to, I assume it's going to partially liquidate. I mean, it's got to have some mechanism where it's got to basically have all the assets, because if someone is in bankruptcy because they have borrowed too much Bitcoin or ETH or USDT, like the insurance fund has to be able to cover any of that, assuming it's not going to take over a full account and then inherit the borrowers, which would be a funny situation that would have to resolve itself somehow. Is the vision that, and we'll talk about the token sale next, because there's a lot of stuff. It funds the insurance fund, and that gets to the governance and how the DAO or the community that is holding Mango tokens, that they'll be able to decide the parameters for all these different things. So it is an important thing. It's not just like some cash grab thing or whatever. What is the insurance fund meant to be holding a diversified portfolio of every asset that is basically being offered, so that it can pay off any liabilities, or how's that going to look?
So we haven't done the implementation, but I don't think sort of the easiest way would be to have in the insurance fund every asset, but that is going to be complicated in other ways, in that now you have to hold every asset in the insurance fund and raise money for every asset, and anytime you launch a new market, you have to have that asset in the insurance fund. More likely, what's going to happen is you have just USDC, because eventually probably move to USDC, and you have USDC as the asset, and if somebody goes bankrupt and what they have borrows in BTC, what would happen is the insurance fund would pay like the dollar value of the BTC that they don't have, and then a liquidator would have to not just the dollar value of the BTC, more than the dollar value of the BTC, and then incentivizes the liquidator to deposit BTC and get that extra 5% or whatever it is that the insurance fund pays. Also, another step, maybe you just go into a pool, you go into a swap, you just swap USDC for BTC. That's also, at the last step where the insurance fund pays, it pays out of, it does a swap first.
Yeah, I mean, maybe stuff like Radium. This is where the composability in DeFi could come in handy, right? Where maybe like trying to do something on Radium, where there's maybe a pool of liquidity there that can be drawn upon, or whatever. Like something like that could make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of go for simpler solutions, like without having to interact with other programs. Yeah, composability is useful, but I don't like to force it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it can always be just a series of like, if this works, do that. Otherwise,
Yeah,
try
exactly.
that. Yeah, it can be a series. Okay. So TLDR, there is some risk on lending. There is this plan for an insurance fund. Not sure what order I want to tackle the next things in. Like, maybe we should talk first about Mango caps, because I know a lot of people here. There's a few of us that have bought it, and some have traded it even. Could you and also this will feed into the token discussion, and then we'll definitely get to the perpetuals. That's not going to let you go until we actually talk about that. So basically, we basically covered everything that Mango is in its current form, the product and the way that it's working right now. Everybody can go to what's the exact address? Trade.mango.markets. Everything that we've just gone through, the borrowing, the lending, the trading on Serum, and the positions you can take, and how the liquidations work. You're fully aware of the risk now on the smart contract level and on our program level, I guess you would say, in Solana, and in the just the system overall. So now I want to shift to some other stuff like the Mango caps. Yeah. So how much money did you guys raise in this thing? Because I wasn't one of the people here actually who got one of them. I was late when I saw the announcement. I think an hour or two late, and by the time I got in, it was like 2,000 USDC, and I was like, damn. I mean, I like these guys. I like the product. I'm not sure I want to spend $2,000 on a fucking hat. So how much money did you guys raise? How did this thing even work? There was a supply of 500. Did you sell, like, what did you just sell them in one shot, 500 people, or how did it work?
Yeah, so it was similar to Unisoc sale, and I mean, look, I paid $2,600 for my hat, and I just received it today. And there's no video, so there's no way to see this hat, but it's a nice hat. You could say worth 2,600 because of the sentimental value when Mango beats Binance. But okay, everyone has their opinion on the value, the value of merchandise. But yeah, so in terms of the sale, we just had this idea of like, an ICO, an initial cap off.
Oh, he left. Fuck. Connection dropped. Okay, let me. Gotta reconnect. One sec. Sorry, guys. One sec. Just when we were getting to the tough questions about the caps, he mysteriously disconnects. Just fucking around. Saying is failing to connect. Nobody else disconnected at the same time. Yeah, maybe Wolf, we cut out this. What's the timestamp on this? To make it easier. He said the
Please.
ICO. Here he is. There you are, Dafydd. All right.
Hey, sorry.
We were thinking like just when we got to the hard questions about the caps.
Yeah.
Suddenly, here, how convenient.
Yeah. Just ran away. Oh, let's.
Please debug .1.
So okay, so you were saying like, oh yeah, it's in everyone's value is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to merchandise, and everything like that. But so the idea you said was like Unisocks, where there's a supply of 500, people buy the NFT and they can redeem it, so give it into you in order to receive a cap. That's the idea, right?
Yeah. So we had the ICO concept, initial cap offering, and it's it's still there, initialcapoffering.com. And yeah, we put it on a slightly modified swap contract. Hold on, I have to turn off the annoying.
Oh yeah,
because
that's the fucking bottom. That was the fucking bottom. I'm logged from the fucking bottom. Let's go.
Cactus, you got to go back down to the freedom room. We're doing a discussion. Yeah, I just moved him down. Sorry. That's what we do in the normal trading room. Sorry.
Yeah. So is it sound pack? Sounds deactivated.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go to self.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Sound pack sounds deactivated.
All right. Now we're back. Okay. Yeah, it's a slightly modified swap contract, and a bonding curve where the price started at $15, and there were 500. All 500 caps were in the pool, and yeah, like people bid that thing up all the way to $4,000. I don't know what it is now. The price has come down a little bit, but maybe it's the bottom. Maybe like that guy said, it's the bottom right here.
I think he was referring to the Bitcoin price. I think he was.
Okay.
So how many did you sell then? How many were previously? So you say initial bonding curve. Like, did you have a supply of 500 in there, and how many have been sold now?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say how many have been sold because people have been buying and selling into the pool. I mean, within minutes, like 450 were sold, and then the price keeps going up, right, to infinity. And so, yeah, okay, so it's 449 now. So 51 caps are still available in the pool.
And so you're saying it goes to infinity. So like, can you never sell the full remainder of the 51 caps? Or
yeah, I think the contract was slightly modified here, but yes, I don't think you can buy the last one because then you would have to divide by 0, and like it just wouldn't work. So, but I might be wrong because the contract was slightly modified and added like a constant number, and I haven't done the math. But basically, it goes really, really high. It already went to like 4,000, and it'll just keep going higher if people buy from the pool and don't sell. And like Unisocks is now trading at like 100K. So, yeah.
Yeah, but Unisocks was a bit different because they were doing it when nobody really thought it was going to get to that level. They were just like selling socks, and so for a while it was just trading like socks, and then the disbelief and the NFT mania led to it trading at these crazy multiples.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I'm not suggesting mango caps will go there, but getting a mango cap is going to be pretty cool, I'll say.
Yeah, no, okay. I'm not poo-pooing that.
I don't know if it'll be. I don't know if you buy it and then you try to sell it. That's always going to be very risky.
But then the idea, that's what I mean. Like it would be. I mean, it's interesting that it's kind of like stuck on the bonding curve there because people are buying. How many have redeemed hats? So you got your hat. So you bought a hat and you like burned the token, I guess, in order to get it or something.
Yeah, burned a token. So about 20 redemptions have taken place so far. Understandably, people don't want to burn their hat that they paid thousands of dollars for. Like I paid 2,600, and I feel like that's more than I've spent on clothing for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So, but okay. Yeah, people can redeem it. And so far, only 20 caps have been redeemed.
All right, let's talk about the real sale. That was just something because people were talking about it. The real sale, and you came out with a light paper, which basically alluded to the sale and the token distribution, and this sort of feeds into a lot of the different things we've been talking about the past couple hours here now. But basically, give everyone just an overview of what the token sale is going to be like, and what the distribution is, and how the governance is going to be factoring into this.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, we wanted to have an insurance fund for the next thing, and we didn't necessarily want to fund the insurance fund with fees, because we always thought fees are always going to be playing catch up, and some issues with said funding fees. So we're going to sell Mango token and fund the insurance fund that way. So the distribution is roughly it's like this. And we spent a lot of time on this and put a lot of thought into it, because there are ways to do the tokens that kind of lock up all the tokens, and then you have a really small float and the price goes really high. Or you could do the tokens where you sell a bunch of tokens to VCs at really low prices, and then you sell only like 1% to the public. I don't know. It was kind of, it's our philosophy that we want to be like very transparent and simple. So the token distribution looks like this. So 5% of the tokens are for the entire Mango team, and sort of the initial grants that we're doing, and all the work that we have been doing and will do up to the time of the DAO launch. So that's 5%. 5% of the total, right? And then 5% will be sold on the insurance fund sale, and that would be whenever the perps, whenever we build, next version of Mango, which would include the perps, perpetual swap contracts. And then 10% would go into this thing we're calling, the provisional governance fund. So that would be controlled by the foundation, and the main purpose of that is basically to hold us over until we can get full governance, like proper governance with a proper user interface and a proper DAO. And we would also have liquidity incentives in there, more grants, like large grants for people building using the Mango token as part of their incentive structure. So that's 20%. So 20% of the total supply would be out, on you could say on day one. Although the provisional governance fund, it's like if we don't use it, we'll just deposit it back into the DAO, right? So if nobody's really worth giving that much in grants to, then we'll just deposit it back into the DAO when the DAO is launched.
So before we get into the DAO thing,
Yeah.
So just a high level for everybody: 5% goes to creators, 5% to this insurance fund, which is a sale. So 5% of a $10 billion supply, meaning that 5%, 500 million tokens, right,
Correct.
would be sold to the public, and it wouldn't be for funding operations per se. It would just be for the insurance fund, which would help back both what we just discussed earlier with the current product and then the future product, Perpetuals, which we'll get into shortly. How does this sale going to work? Let's just drill into that first, because that's what people want to know. Like, how do I get Mango? Some people are convinced about it, and they just want to get. How do they get it? So, how does the sale going to work?
Yeah. So, it's in our light paper. It's if you go into the docs, if you hit the learn button on mango.markets, there's like a learn button at the top, and so you could read more about it. But very briefly, it's we were trying to prioritize simplicity here. It would be the sale would be done over 48 hours, and the first 24 hours. The users can, there's an unrestricted period where they can just deposit USDC or withdraw USDC from the USDC vault of the sale. And there will be 500 million Mango tokens on the other side in the Mango vault. And the price, basically everyone will get exactly the same price. and the price is simply the total number of USDC in the USDC vault divided by the total number of Mango in the Mango vault, which would be 500 million, right? So if at the end of the total, at the end of the sale, if there's 50 million USDC in there, then it would be 50 million divided by 500 million, 10 cents per Mango. Okay, and the amount of Mango that you get is pro rata. It's your proportion of the USDC pool. There is a USDC vault.
And
what
would sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's this other important step in the mechanism. So what happens when people are depositing and withdrawing USDC? Like they deposit when they think the price is too low, and then they withdraw when they think, oh no, this is too much for Mango tokens. I don't want to pay this. But what happens at the last second? You have some billionaire comes in and drops like $1 billion in and raises the price for everyone, and no one likes that price. So to sort of get around that issue, the last, it's a 48-hour sale, so the first 24 hours is unrestricted. The last 24 hours, people can only withdraw. So a billionaire came in and deposited $1 billion at the last second. You don't like that price, then you withdraw. But if you withdraw, you can't come back in, right? So the price can only go down during that withdrawal period. And I think it's like super simple. And at the end of the 48 hours, whatever USDC is in the USDC vault, that is divided by the number of Mango tokens, and that's the price that everyone gets.
Okay, and it just goes into the insurance fund.
Yep, and it goes into the insurance fund, and we want to have like as little touch on this as possible. Like we're still designing it, still working on the details, but it should be totally only under the control of the DAO. So if for some reason people just ape in and they put in like $1 billion into the pool, you probably don't need $1 billion in the insurance fund. So that money isn't wasted. Later, the DAO would have control over that money and can do whatever they want with that money. Maybe take it back, maybe distribute it back to token holders, whatever the DAO does.
So in a way, this 5% to the insurance fund is really just to the DAO.
Yes, it's really just to the DAO. It's the insurance fund is like the purpose that we are, aiming for, and it'll be immediately useful, right? It's not just money that's just going to sit there. But if there is money that's going to sit there that's not going to be useful, the DAO can, reclaim it.
And what about the 5% to creators? So obviously, you guys that have been building this for the past half year or whatever, you guys put a lot of effort and everything into it. But is there some kind of vesting period to this where you're incentivized to maximize the value of the tokens that you have received by adding as much value to the project as possible, or are they just unlocked for you guys to do, coke and horse party or whatever you want to do?
Yeah, I don't know. Do drug dealers accept Mango? I hope. Anyway, we don't initially have this locking concept, and the main reason is, again, because it adds complexity, and then people can also easily get around it. Maybe not that easy to get around the lock tokens, but like, if you have like million Mango tokens or 100 million Mango tokens or something, you could always just sell it to a OTC desk. And they're basically, when we were thinking about it, there was like a lot of ways that people can just get around the locking period, and it kind of punishes those people who stay with the locking. But I'm still open to it. Like we're still a ways out from implementing this. And we were considering different ways to kind of like reassure people that it's not going to be all dumped on them. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like anytime my wallet moves, like you'll know what I have in my wallet, and you'll know if it moves 7 days in advance or something like that. I've been thinking through mechanisms. I can't say what mechanism we might use or any at all. But ultimately, I think that's not, I've talked to you about this before. So I know you take a different view, but my view is like, well, you buy Mango tokens not to like, it's not to get rich, or you might get rich, but it's a governance token, and you probably just want to know that maybe the initial creators are still in it, or at least I will try to make myself as public as possible. Like you should know that I'm still in it. But if somebody does dump the tokens, well, hopefully we're at the decentralized stage where there are enough teams, and the thing that's been built is valuable enough that the tokens have value for that reason, to be able to govern over something that's real. So I understand the concerns, but we've kind of gone with the simplicity route and decided like don't want to add complexity there, but still open, so it could still happen. Could still happen.
And what about this? So there's 10% temporary governance, 5% from people who buy to fund the insurance fund, 5% to creators. Then there's 80% that is just, okay, the DAO, which is at the beginning just composed of the temporary governance, which is 50% of the circulating supply. 25% is random people that participated in the public sale. And then the rest of it is 5% you guys. So you're basically controlling, not you, but you, plural, as in the temporary governance plus creators effectively control the 80%. Is that fair to say or not?
Oh, sorry, I don't think I hit my the push to talk. So sorry, no, it's not correct. I think because the 80% will actually be locked. Like it will be in the governance, and we have to set up all the voting procedures and all these things. But I mean, it has to be like, if it wasn't locked, then you would just not buy any tokens at all, because 80%, like 1% controls 80%. That's horrific.
No, I don't mean 1%, but the 80% are locked, but the remaining 20%, half of that is this temporary governance that you're referring to, which is the foundation, and then 25% is creators. Can't creators plus foundation control then the 80% distribution?
Yeah. So again, the provisional governance, and these are things we're going to try to implement this in the code, but the objective here is the provisional governance fund will not have a vote, and it won't matter because there won't be governance initially. There won't be like that takes time to implement. And if you've seen like Compound or Uniswap, I don't know if Uniswap is actually implementing governance, but well, they say they do, and Compound actually did implement governance, but it takes time. So there's like a kind of centralized period, but still, it's not that we wouldn't be able to use the provisional governance tokens to, I suppose we could allocate it to ourselves and then, just screw over the whole project. This is, it's hard to say, like it could happen. We're gonna bound ourselves to not do that. And we're gonna build, the DAO and make it happen. But and if there's any mechanisms we can put in place to reassure people that we literally cannot do it, we will 100% take those steps.
So is this like just so people understand, so when there's a DAO, when there's a decision to be made for the DAO to do something with the money or the tokens or whatever, what's the minimum percentage of the circulating supply that needs to vote in order for it to be valid? So what's the quorum, and then what determines the winner? Is it a simple majority, 50 or greater than 50%?
Yeah, I think our initial just rough guess here that we put, and I think we kind of just went with whatever Compound was doing. It was like 2% for quorum. That's really, I mean, that's there in the paper, but subject to change. In the sense that we don't. There's this trade-off of like, a lot of people are going to buy tokens and they're not going to try to do governance,
Yep.
And so, but the way that we distribute the tokens and like our vision for distributing tokens is to people who care about governance, mainly to devs. We're going to try not to just like randomly allocate all the tokens to, well, definitely not to the founders and definitely not to randomly to like everyone. We're going to try to allocate most of it to devs who would be in governance. So maybe 2% would be too small. Maybe, when you think about it, maybe we have a larger governance community than other projects. So maybe quorum should be like 20%. I don't know.
I mean, what about what if tokens get lost? Like, there's a lot of practical stuff. Like, I mean, I think this topic is particularly interesting to me because we've touched on in the past like over 2 hours now in talking like many different dimensions of like crypto. Like, there's the blockchain tech stuff on the base layer. Then there's this financial aspect, financial engineering, where we're building these financial products like Mango, this margin stuff. There's like obviously like coding it together and then doing the sale. And then now we're in this like almost philosophical or like political economy type side of things, where now you have to figure out a way that people can actually effectively govern this social system. You're creating like a social system with this governance stuff, right?
Yeah, that's why it's so exciting. There's like developing a constitution kind of, or being a founding father in this sense. It's and it's exciting because it's so experimental. I'm not gonna come here and say this is gonna work. Like, this is the way I see it is we're in the exploration stage. We're gonna look for different governance mechanisms and different ways to organize people. Kind of like I use the example of like the joint stock corporation, which was a huge kind of leap forward for humanity when it was first discovered or implemented in the 17th century. And so similarly, this might be a new kind of human organization, or we might hit upon gold and find a new form of human organization that really works. But there's you can't be too idealistic, and you can't be too ideological. Like, we have to build the thing, we have to build valuable stuff, and but I love the experimental aspect of this.
I mean, because the it's almost like the tech and the product layer is easier. Like, that's something that's a problem that can be solved, and then there's this sort of social layer which brings all the other things that we talked about together, really, and holds it into this, like, this is a legitimate decentralized project that's performant and cool and like will last into the future. And you bring up like this joint stock thing. I'm thinking more like almost like 1871, like Paris Commune style stuff, like these anarchistic, like almost Russian Revolution level things. Like, these are the stories.
Failures. So I try not to think about the failures. I try to focus on the positive, the successes of the past. But same idea, and we might end up like a failure. Like, there's way more failures than there are successes, for sure.
Yeah, and these, I mean, that's always like whenever you have any kind of anarchistic sort of thing going on, there's always this like, okay, who's in charge? Like, what's actually going on? Like, there's always some power structure that you have to navigate around, and so, and these decisions that you make about oh, is it 5% to this, 10% to that? Like they all have impacts on this, and even things like basic pragmatic things like what if people lose their keys and like how we can't reach quorum because there's been some kind of issue like that, how to then get around these kind of things.
Yeah,
and it's almost like I was gonna say like it makes me think of like when you were saying like, oh yeah, like maybe we can't just screw it all up, when you're saying that the foundation, the temporary governance is 10% and or I guess 50% and with the creators, it's almost like it makes me think of like almost like Myanmar or something where there's like unrest and then there's military dictatorship at the beginning that promises to make a transition to democracy, and then it's like, are they really going to transition us to democracy? Are they just going to stay in power for decades, and then like before we know it, we're stuck in a permanently autocratic system?
Yeah, I would say two things about this. So there's one cool thing about this is that we are we're not the Myanmar military, so we don't have any coercive powers over anyone. And I certainly do not recommend to anyone that they should simply trust us. This is kind of like an intermediate step that we're going through. And so, if you like the Mango project and you like the project, you might have to wait a while, maybe 6 months, right? And so if you want to know that we're actually going to deliver on our promises, we're actually going to give you decentralized control, like a decentralized organization, then you might have to wait 6 months. And so I don't recommend that anyone go out and buy Mango tokens to like participate in the governance immediately, because the governance won't be there immediately. So that's a moot point. So it's different. I guess if I was in Burma or Myanmar, I don't have this option of complying with the military or not. Like, even escaping Myanmar is difficult, right? Whereas here, if at any point you start to think that the Mango team is starting to turn malevolent, then you dump your tokens and you get out. Or better yet, don't get in the first place until it's fully decentralized and the Mango team does not have does not have control over it.
Yeah, and I think the vision there is, I know you said not to be idealistic, but and we had talked a bit about this before, but I'm not sure anyone does governance properly right now. So I think this is almost like doing something that currently doesn't fully exist. Like obviously on base layer things, when it comes to proof of work, proof of stake, I think that's pretty solid. Like we have a good idea of how that looks. But in terms of a decentralized governing, like a DAO where people are voting and setting up structures like this, I don't think anyone's really cracked that nut even right now. And like one of the ways to do it maybe is, sure, you put up votes, and maybe in that vote it's like this is a merge request or a pull request. This is code that is going to be going into our decentralized system. Vote yes or no. And then when the vote happens, there's automatically some kind of keys which are taking that code, pushing it, upgrading the contract. I don't know exactly the engineering of how it would work, but really that's the only way for it to truly be decentralized. And then the stakes become really high because suddenly there's money on the line, everything's automatic. There's no training wheels on here. It's not a tricycle. Like this is the real deal. And I don't think anybody does that right now. First of all, correct me if I'm wrong. Second of all, I think that if it is done on Mango and it's done properly, this would be like pretty revolutionary. And I think it's honestly years away.
Yeah, it's probably years away because we're probably going to have to experiment with things. But we should, we should make clear. I mean, what's the problem really that we're trying to solve? And there's this problem with centralization in that if you have one guy holding the keys, and this is why, by the way, this is why I don't want to be holding the keys. I don't want the foundation holding the keys. If you have this one guy holding these keys, you just go put a gun to his head and make him do whatever you want. And that's a huge security risk. And decentralization is harder to pull off. And that's why that's why this is speculative, and that's why this is an experiment in governance. But the upside is also, we should like remember there's this upside that once you're decentralized, you can actually trust the it doesn't, the Myanmar government doesn't take over, say I live in Myanmar and they put a gun to my head and say, seize half of everyone's wealth because, we're building glorious Myanmar V2 or something. It's a risk you live with every day with every centralized entity. And a decentralized entity, you don't have to live with that risk. And that's sort of what I'm. And then I see the expected value calculation, right? So even if our probability of success it's certainly not 100%. If our probability of success is low, the upside might be immense, though, and so the expected value of doing this, partaking in this in the first place, is really high.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm seeing it. I don't pretend that we're like the new guys who are gonna totally solve all the problems, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think anyone's like really fully doing it that way. I mean, I think with Yearn and Sushi and stuff, really behind the scenes is just a multi-sig, right? Where there's maybe 6 to 10 individuals which ultimately have the control and have to put the will, or pledge to put the will of the people, the will of the community, the will of the DAO to work, where they can push the upgrades and stuff like that. I mean, that's as far as I think it's gone.
Yeah, I think maybe even well, I'm not sure we need to have this multi-sig kind of setup. I think you can actually just submit code, and well, maybe one person has to actually like press the button to upload the code, but they can't do anything else. All they can do is upload the code that has already been approved. I think we can get there. And worst case scenario, like the governance can invalidate certain keys, right? So if we know that this guy is a bad actor and he's not doing what he said he would, then then there's some kind of buffer period where we try to see if did he actually do what he said he was going to do. And if he didn't, then we invalidate that key. And find a new kind of representative, real world representative. So
Yeah.
those kinds of problems. I'm more concerned about like how do you coordinate all these people towards a goal, and I kind of imagine it being the DAO will allocate large numbers of tokens, more than the founders, as perhaps more than the founders, or at least on par with the founders. Large number of tokens to independent teams who build new things. Like we're talking to this team that's building prediction markets, and they're considering building it with Mango, and they can just have a large allocation, roughly on the order of like 3-4%, if we can, if we can work out the incentives correctly there. So it's like a lot of independent teams holding large numbers of tokens, I think, is probably the way it would succeed.
Yeah, and so once this DAO mechanism's in place, so you mentioned like the temp governance and the DAO is like 90% of the token supply, basically. So a lot of people have been speculating about, are these Mango guys going to do an airdrop to early users or anyone that has been interacting with it, and blah, blah, blah. That's something that basically you're just shoving over to the DAO and say, like, if you guys decide to do some kind of incentive to build loyalty with the early users, then that's going to happen in that stage.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. And this is interesting that this is the takeaway that a lot of people on Twitter, this is what they got out of the light paper, but that's not necessarily what we're saying. So the temporary governance, which should hold us over, let's say, and let's say governance comes out in like Q4 of this year, right? Like actual DAO governance with proper user interface and everything. So the temporary governance should get us there. The temporary governance could do airdrops as well, which means what does that mean? It means basically the Mango team is deciding to do an airdrop. But what I'll say is, and people always like are going to the Discord channel and like, yeah, how do I get an airdrop? And look, we can't say like we can't tell you how the airdrop is going to look if there is one, right? I don't even know if there's going to be one, but even if there was an airdrop, we wouldn't be able to tell you because then you would game it. And if we said airdrop for every margin account, then people create like 1 million margin accounts. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's just bad news. So I don't think they're, basically there's just going to be always silence on that issue. There might never even be an airdrop. We haven't even decided, but even if we did decide, we wouldn't talk about it. So
right. So it's okay. So it's not necessarily shoved off to the 80% DAO. It could be something you do in the 10 governance thing.
yeah, for sure, it could be. Yeah.
But for now, focusing on building and focusing on, I guess, this insurance fund sale where you're gonna have to put together some contract for that. What to you is a good result on the insurance fund sale? Like how much USDC?
This is rough because we were we kind of just like whatever we raise, that's what it is. And the more you raise, the safer the the safer the trading is on Mango perps and Mango margin. So yeah, I haven't given any thought to what's like a good number. Probably want to raise like 10 million.
You must have given some thought because this also sets the anchor for the price of the token. It sets the anchor for the value of the ecosystem. There's got to be some number in your head that you're gonna be like, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, $1 trillion would be great. Let's start with the easiest answers. $0 would be bad. Like in the middle here, like I think if you had 10 million, I just have to look at the numbers on like liquidations and look at the insurance fund of similar projects, like maybe DYDX on Ethereum. How big is their insurance fund? How big?
It's about 10 million actually. Yeah, we just had them on earlier this week, and they said it was something on the order of 10 million, and that they actually rarely have drawdowns, for what it's worth.
Yeah, but then I feel like the answer of we rarely have drawdowns is it doesn't add much value because when you do have a drawdown, it could be really huge. Yeah. And these are kind of tail event type of things. So probably 10 million would be okay, I think. But we're trying to aim for more than that. Probably like 30 million in the insurance fund would be kind of safe. Yeah.
And unlike DYDX, and this is now a good, I think, segue, because insurance fund for the borrowing lending thing at 5x leverage, that's one thing. But it gets more interesting in the context of perpetual contracts or futures contracts, where you have expressed in the slide paper the desire to run a swaps futures product line. So now, and you mentioned also prediction markets before, so now we're probably up to like 10 different use cases so far that the Mango ecosystem is.
Well, the prediction markets are very tentative. I just mentioned that as like, there's this team that's super interested in building prediction markets on Solana, and I really, talking to them, they seem really competent, and they want to build on Mango. Let's see if it works. Let's see if we can make it. If we can. This will be the first test case of like the Mango DAO. Multiple teams building on. But yes, yeah.
Okay, so let's focus on the
and then perps. Yeah.
Yeah. So perpetual is what like you're going to be building basically, and your core team will be building, and maybe others will be contributing to it. So DYDX, we talked to earlier, great guys. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but ultimately their system though does rely on running a matching and margining system. on a centralized server, and then they just push the sort of fills and the other stuff. They do that on chain. On now they do it on layer 2 on Ethereum. But now we're in Solana world, and you're actually going to be doing it in a truly decentralized sense, where it's going to be on chain on Solana with perpetuals. Walk us through what this product's going to look like, and what if any compromises have to be made in terms of the user experience for users, for traders out there that are used to trading on like FTX or Binance. I guess we should use Binance futures as the comparison point. Like, is there is anyone going to be suffering from using the perpetuals that you have in mind?
So again, it's hard to say because you can tell we have a lot on our plate, and only the vague outline of perps is up so far. But the way the way I'm the design that I'm thinking of right now, there wouldn't have to be any sacrifices. Well, compared to Binance, I don't use Binance a lot, so I don't really know what's available. But it would be version 1 of perps would probably be a little bit worse than FTX, but maybe like on par with Binance. So what do I mean by that? So the most likely what we're going with is you would have something like 8 perp contracts cross margin together. Probably not on day 1, because you got to like build the liquidity on these things, and maybe there's not that much liquidity on I don't know, Bonfida tokens or something, like if we have Bonfida perps. But anyway, so but it can support up to 8, and you can deposit USDC, or you can deposit any of those 8 tokens, like the underlying assets that those perp contracts represent. And so, for example, you might be able to you'd be able to deposit SOL and go 10x levered long on BTC perp. So okay, that's one thing right there that you automatically sacrifice, which is on day 1, most likely we can't have 100x leverage on chain. Maybe possible in the future, but like realistically, 10x is what we're aiming for. And because it's perpetual swaps, there's not this issue of can I withdraw my like for me to go long, I have to first borrow dollars from somebody else. Like all of those things have to be physically there. In perps, it's kind of created from thin air, like a contract between 2 people that one person will pay if the price goes higher, then the person who's short will pay the person who's long, and if the price goes lower, the person who is long will pay the person who's short. And if at any point they don't have the collateral in their accounts to be able to pay the other party, then or they're getting dangerously close to not having the collateral, then a liquidator will come in, take over their position, and deposit collateral.
So in comparison to what we were discussing, how the current spot margin system works, there actually would be this sort of position object that exists in this kind of like where.
Yes.
Okay, and so let's say I don't like the quote currency or the home currency of this system sounds like it's going to be USDC. Like they're all linear perpetual contracts.
Probably, and the cool thing is though, because it'll be open source, like and maybe even we'll have incentives for people to host the GUI. If you want the quote currency to be BTC, then you could do that. You can launch it with BTC. But yeah, the one we're going with and trying to provide get liquidity into will be with USDC probably.
And so what happens if you don't have any USDC in your account and you owe funding, or you take a loss or you pay a trading fee in USDC, like how do you convert that collateral into USDC to satisfy the home currency stuff? Is that where Serum comes into play or not?
Yeah, I think probably there. We'll have to. Serum is kind of heavy duty, but there's Serum swap, right? The Serum DEX is, I say heavy duty because technically, it's a whole thing on chain. It's a order book and everything. But if we can do it on Serum DEX, we'll do it on Serum DEX. Like you will have to basically, like if you need to pay funding. And all you have is SOL in your wallet, then some of your SOL will have to be sold for USDC, and then
that's a lot of flow can be generated by that. But you might also have like just paying trading fees. I guess technically the fees are being taken by the DAO, so maybe there's some. They could just take the underlying the base currency of the different pairs and sort of I don't know, do the back office, whatever the DAO decides, I guess is the idea. But when it comes to funding, I'm expecting USDC. You got to give me USDC. But what if there's a really small amount and it's too small to swap on Serum?
So we can get around really small amounts by saying one contract is at least $100 or something like that. Well, that should help prevent really small amounts. But if it's below even the small amount that you can't, probably in that case, the more than whatever is the min tick, right? Whatever is the smallest quanta of SOL that can be sold, we will sell that much, and you'll just have some extra USDC in your wallet.
That makes sense.
Look. So I'll say this. And again, I've talked to you previously, and you've tried to help me game out how we should go and all these things. And so this, but for everybody else who's listening, like the ultimate goal here is to have something closer to what FTX has, where you have your margin positions. All your like spot balances, all of that is cross collateralized with your perp accounts, your perp positions. So this problem wouldn't exist if we implement the solution where, say you have 8 perp contracts, and you also have the 8 corresponding Serum DEX markets, right? And the Mango markets that provide margin for those, and like the lending pools for those. And so this problem wouldn't arise if all of those things were collateralized together. You would just borrow, instead of taking some of your SOL and selling it on Serum DEX or selling it on a swap, you would just borrow some USDC and pay the funding that way. Settle the funding that way.
Yeah.
So that would be cool, and I feel like there are lots of technical. Not lots of technical. There are a few technical barriers such that it would make it very complex to implement something that big. But that's the goal. And once you implement it, it makes Mango the best project in DeFi. Period. It's kind of almost like a I win button, and then you just, that's it. That's game over.
I think that the way that you've described it sounds basically like a centralized exchange experience, and the features and everything. Obviously, I guess V1, you were saying it wouldn't all be together, the spot margin and perpetuals, but just having the perpetuals there, that alone is cool, because you can, like, if you want to do a let's say I want to earn the funding on a perpetual, and I feel like I want to do some arbitrage, I can take some USDC, buy Bitcoin or whatever on the spot side, move it over to Perpetual, and then use that Bitcoin as collateral to sell 1 Bitcoin of
Yep.
worth of Perpetual, right? So it's just one extra step. I mean, so that sounds really cool.
But more than a step, you can do it on margin. Like if you could do it with leverage, right? So you can just say the interest rate on Mango margin is like for USDC is like 5%, but the perp funding rate is annualized something like 50%, which is what it is right now, I think, on FTX and other places. Then there's a simple arbitrage there. You just go 5x long BTC and on margin, and then go 5x short on the perps, and you're just going to be collecting funding. It's just like not quite free money, but almost.
Yeah. No, that's exactly similar.
And it boosts liquidity, and I mean, it's just a huge step up, and it's such a step up that even centralized exchanges, like for example, OKX doesn't have that feature. FTX has it, and probably some other exchanges also have that feature, but even a lot of centralized exchanges don't have it today, let alone
which makes me think like. So from a product perspective, I think all that sounds awesome, but then I get worried about we're building this on Solana, right? We're talking about Solana on the blockchain. Is this doable? Like margin calculations tend to be computationally expensive, even in a centralized environment. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and even in Serum, there's this crank thing that's needed to keep the whole thing going. How's this going to work on Solana? Can this work on Solana?
I mean, the short answer is that it can work on Solana. The only reason why we're not gonna just go ahead. I mean, my instinct is always like, go build the best thing, and so. Like if you build it, and we all agree, like if we build it, that's going to be the biggest project. It's basically I win button. That's my instinct. But the only reason we're not doing it is because for technical reasons, it's going to be something new on Solana that others are not doing, which is, we will be kind of piecing together multiple transactions. The amount of data on each transaction is limited. We have to piece together multiple transactions, and that could be very complex, and it could be slower if you send to go long on your perp, you have to send 3 transactions, and all 3 have to hit the validator before it gets executed. Depending on how the network actually works in practice, that might slow it down or might not slow it down at all. And that's just like a thing we have to test and see.
Well, is this something we need to talk to Anatoly about? Is this something he needs to accommodate?
Yeah, Anatoly is aware. And so I haven't talked to him about this in particular, but I do get the sense from other people that I've talked to, we're hitting upon a more fundamental limit, like the UDP packet size. Probably my guess, I don't know. I mean, we could get Anatoly on here at some point, but my guess is you have to redesign a lot about Solana if you try to increase the size of a transaction. Because right now the size of a transaction is fixed to a certain amount, and it's probably like a more fundamental limit. So yeah, maybe not much Anatoly can do there.
So even if we don't think about combining spot margin and perpetuals all in one, even perpetuals alone sounds pretty ambitious. How confident are you that I guess V1 is what you called it, that perpetuals on Solana in this kind of user experience that we described, that it can really be doable? Like, again, I'm just thinking about, you got to be like, however high the leverage is, even if it's like 20x or whatever, like how often can you margin the positions, and does the program need to get fed more Sol tokens in order to be able to do these checks? Like, how does it work?
No, so the way Solana is engineered is basically you pay the same transaction fee. The transaction fee only goes up the more signatures you have. And you'll probably only have one signature. The owner will sign the transaction. So it's always going to be the same. So that's not something we need to worry about. Now, okay, if we go obviously the full-fledged version 3, you have multiple transactions. Okay, you might have to pay, instead of 0.001 cent, you pay 0.003 cents or whatever. Not a problem. Not what I'm worried about. And I mean, to your point of like yeah, when we write down all the stuff on the light paper, and we're like, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that, June 1st, this and that, and when you actually start sitting down and start writing the code or start designing it, you realize, oh wow, there's a lot of pieces here that need to go well for this to happen. But I'm like I mean, if your question is it possible on Solana? Like, yes, like I'm like 90% confident, 95% confident it's possible. Is it possible within the next month and a half? Not sure yet. Given all the other work we have to do with onboarding new devs and etc. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to kill myself doing it, and we will. We'll try to get it done, but it's definitely possible. But the code, on the code level, there's no like, perps. We're not inventing something new, right? We roughly know what perps look like, what are the pitfalls, all these things. The new thing is building it on Solana. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to build it, but also you need to source the liquidity, or sort of organize the community to, like, we'll have a market making bot, and like I'll have market making workshops, so I teach everyone what I know about market making so that they can come and do this on Mango.
Or I mean, just having a DAO where people can, like, if we all were throwing in 100,000 USDC and we ran like a group AMM on the exchanges and on the exchange. But I mean, I guess the liquidity. That's the other thing I was going to get to, is that even if you build the most amazing thing there, unless you have like FTX has Alameda behind them to just do it. Like, if you want liquidity on this, like a random weather contract or hash rate futures or whatever, boom, you got full liquidity, 10 million deep on either side within 1%. There you go. Like, that liquidity is always going to be a problem no matter what. I am more concerned about just that, can this really be done on Solana? Is there really enough? Can this scale as well with enough users? Is there some weakness in the overall approach where, like, why isn't anyone else doing this, and can Solana really handle this? Because there's a lot of centralized exchanges that can't even do this themselves in a much more, I don't know, computationally friendly environment. So
maybe we'll run into problems. That always happens, and you always run into problems that you didn't anticipate. And I mean, your question of like, why isn't nobody else doing this? I actually, I asked myself the same question 6 months ago, and I that's why it took so long to build Mango Margin, because I just thought somebody else is building it right now, and I'm just a noob and I don't know how to do this, or I'm not going to beat the other guys who are doing this. It turns out that's, there wasn't, other people are working on it. It's hard for everyone. But I don't think there's any fundamental problem here that prevents this from happening. I'll I'll probably run into some issues, but like, if worst case scenario, we end up with something like perps that is maybe it's just one contract, kind of like how you have it on OKX, for example. You just have one perp with one currency.
Funds in account. Okay.
Yeah, even that would be useful to people. It's not. If I thought that's the best we can do, I wouldn't. I would just quit.
Yeah, but incremental,
yeah.
like coming out with something, so that, and then saying like coming soon is going to be the more advanced.
Yeah, I think so, and you could help me think through this here, and I'll always I'm always interested in other people's opinions. So definitely come to Discord, and if you have a strong opinion, please let me know. But the incremental approach is good. One thing that happens with the incremental approach is you sometimes waste. You waste time because you built a lot of things for the kind of intermediate step, which was never your ultimate goal. And for me, I wouldn't be happy if that's the best we can do, right? So I wouldn't, the whole time when we have, let's say we just have one perp with one coin as collateral, it wouldn't make me that happy to build it. It wouldn't make me that happy to see it. So I would always be thinking about the next thing. I would always be like, well, how do we actually beat Binance? So that's maybe a fault of my psychology, but
no,
yeah.
I think it's the right. I mean, I think it's only an issue to do the incremental thing if like it's really not doable in the end to get to the state that you want to get to. And that's what I'm most concerned about. Like, okay, we've talked about like the approach of how this could be done, very similar to how the lending's already working on Mango. So it's really just like, okay, is it really going to work on Solana? Like we talked about how much can be built on Solana, how fast it is, how performant. Can this really end up being
done? Let me just say yes, it can be built. I'm pretty confident. Even our best solution that we have in mind, right, with multiple transactions, our final end state, even that can be built. The only question is, what will we lose? Do we lose latency? How much latency do we lose? And I guess we'll know. Like, okay, if latency and reliability go down enough, then it's not useful anymore. No one will want to use that. So, maybe in that sense it can't be built. But in the sense of, if you're willing to suffer through, Ethereum level latency, then I'm like super confident. I'm super confident we can make it happen here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's dozens of people here who would love to beta test or alpha test or anything you got, basically. So we're happy to play with it, give feedback.
I mean, I think if you guys could give me I would, maybe we need to do a survey on Discord, and I kind of want to ask people who trade more and people who trade on decentralized exchanges more. Like the question, it's a question of, would you use this? The other option we had in mind, and this would be much easier to implement, is we just have one spot market cross margin with one perp. So like BTC USD cross BTC USDC cross margin with BTC USD perp. And like this, you might have like 20 or 30 different markets, but they don't cross margin across. You can't deposit your SOL and go long BTC perp, for example. But it makes it more modular. So is that something that people would use? That I kind of want to know.
I mean, this is, the trade-offs are very difficult, and they're going to vary by person.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how the survey would look, though, if it's like very lopsided, or if it's very even. Like, if there's just, everyone has a different preference based on their trading strategy and style.
Yeah, I mean, write up the survey. I mean, I guess everybody that is listening, so
Yeah, I
you've already
mean, I think
mentioned.
your viewers are better, right? I think your viewers are, or there's a higher concentration of trading knowledge here.
Yeah,
So
I would
that's good.
say in
Yeah.
general, yeah, but in general also, so the main website mango.market. Well, if you want to trade, you go to trade.mango.markets. If you want to go to their Twitter, it's just twitter.com/mango markets. And then how do they get to the Discord?
Yeah, that's a that's a good question. We might have the Discord link on the website or the Twitter.
Yeah, so if you go to, oh, okay, it's like a random string. It's not like you don't have
Yeah,
a
I don't have it
custom.
memorized. I should maybe try to memorize it maybe.
No, you can make a
Oh
custom
yeah,
thing,
it's here
right?
on the website. So mango.markets.
And at the
On
bottom, you
the
click the
At the
Discord.
bottom you have the Twitter, you have the Discord, you have the GitHub, and the email.
Yeah,
So everything at the bottom there. Yeah.
normally you can even like generate like Mango as your name, and then it's just discord.gg/mango. But anyway,
Okay. Yeah. We'll look into that. Yeah. Right now it's some ugly random string.
yeah, but yeah. So anyone that wants to join their Discord and the foundation behind it, Blockworks Foundation, we've gone through like everything inside and out basically in the past few hours here. There's so many layers to it. That's why I mean there's so much to cover, right? So, but I think we've basically hit everything from the how it's currently interacting with Serum, how the borrowing and deposit, the interest earning that you can do, the trading, how the liquidations work, the Mango Cap sale, the token sale, the DAO plans, the perp plans. Like, there's so much to this. I think Mango is a really exciting project in general. So anybody out there that's been listening, that's in the
Is anyone still here?
does anybody think we haven't covered anything? I think one question I saw was, where does Mango come from? Like the name Mango Markets.
Yeah. I mean, look, nobody hates mangoes. I mean, I haven't heard of anybody who dislikes mangoes. And basically, yeah, mango markets is just an alliteration. It's a fruit that everyone likes. We just decided to go with it.
It's nice and simple, yeah. So the only thing is that there was this DeFi summer where there was all these scammy food tokens, and I think there's slightly that people. Oh look, so this guy got a mango smoothie in the chat. He loves mangoes. Not everybody loves mangoes, but there's somehow like people take it maybe a little bit less seriously if it's like a food token. They think, is that a food scam?
Yeah. I never participated in any of the food stuff, and I think maybe, but I did see it like from the outside on Twitter and stuff. I didn't know it had a negative connotation.
It's very slight. It's not. I don't think it's a big deal.
But we'll change that connotation. So
yeah,
no
exactly.
problem.
And any other questions out there for Dafydd that you think we haven't covered? I mean, I think we've covered honestly every fucking angle.
This was the most in-depth thing. Period. Yeah.
Anybody who wants to understand anything about Mango can just listen to this discussion. You can direct them to this. We're gonna have a YouTube link that just covers all of this stuff, basically. But yeah, I think already there's a number of people in the WhalePool community that are in the Mango community. There's a decent overlap here, so I think it was great to spend the time to get everyone to get to know you and know what's going on behind Mango. And I think everyone's super excited about the sale, to get involved and basically see what's coming up here in the next couple of months. There's going to be stuff coming out, so it's really exciting. And especially the perps. I think everyone's really excited about the perps because it's something that we thought Serum was going to be coming out with. Then now we've heard that Bonfide is doing, and it's like, come on, Solana needs to have futures trading, perps, something that's more derivatives related. But you've already got margin, spot margin, so that's one check box. Like, you're already building, you're already shipping stuff, and that's what matters most in this space. Like, you're not just throwing promises out there, you're building. So thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you spending the time to go into all this detail with
Yeah.
us. I promise you it'll be worth it because you can send this link to anybody now and they can learn all about
Yeah,
this
you
stuff.
know, I asked you before I came on. I was like, "How long is it gonna take?" And you were like, "It's gonna take 4 hours." And then you were like, just fucking with you. Yeah, we'll wrap it up in an hour." And no, he was not he was not lying.
Yeah.
No, but I enjoyed it. It was good. And this was like the most thorough thing. So really appreciate going through all the details with me.
Yeah, and we look forward to keeping you to your promises and your
Yes.
claims here. We're gonna
I'm
be in the Discord.
I'm not Myanmar junta.
Okay,
I'll
you're
try
gonna
not
be.
to be.
I guess
Try not to be.
what's the model then? If you're not the Myanmar military, who are you?
Satoshi. That's the model here.
There you go. Nice.
The
I like
greatest.
it.
The
Good
greatest.
answer. Good answer. Perfect, man.
Yeah.
All right, we're all rooting for
All
you. We're all looking forward to supporting Mango. So go out there and crush it for us.
Will do. Try my best.
All right, mate. Thanks. Cheers.